function that
Okay, you guys ready?
Am I order?
Yep. Go with the approval of the minutes.
Oh, you just.
Any changes or, on the Judy Stang part, it says she unsure. I mean, she's unsure.
Ken's coming too.
I have up at the top, under the Kathy Burley. She states that there are too many people in the offices and this allows elected officials not to be there instead of to be there.
Okay,
Oh, no, my phone's.
What did I tell you?
Yeah.
I read it.
I left my phone out in I figured she'd be back.
That's where German paper translation was.
Feel good. Yeah. One of those
I did
human
look at
interest
that was
stories.
one.
Yes.
Did Joan send that?
No, that just came out, well, Joan may have, because we sent it
I
to
sent
her.
it to Joan. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing, Lori? I fixed yours, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, after the.
Okay.
People who's like commissioners is the one. Board of Commissioners. Hey, Dylan. How are you? Good. I've seen you for a little bit.
During the seventh, too.
What's new?
It's either been campaign trail or hanging. Actually, I was gone for about a week.
That campaign trail stuff isn't fun, is it?
Well, it's busy.
It's busy, yeah. That's why it's not fun. It's just, it's busy, especially if you don't have time for it. Congratulations on that. You looking forward to it?
Yeah.
Good.
Good.
Jessica? Good to see you here. Good to see you here.
Oh, yeah.
That's mine, too.
To address.
Some feel that is what it, you feel that it.
I gotta call Mary.
Kim?
Hey, Mary. I'm gonna put you on speaker, okay? We're just finishing up the minutes. Okay. Can you hear us okay?
I can.
Who was that?
Mary.
Darnell. Okay. You done with the minutes?
Yep.
Okay. Charlie's already made the said changes, I think, and we've all proposed.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of July 1st and July 7th with said changes.
I would second that motion.
Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay, well, it's 10 after 9, and we have on the agenda the difficult topic, and therefore this discussion with our department heads of the reduction in force and how we need to proceed and where we need to target. Dale, do you have anything you want to help us with our tough decision today?
I composed a little bit of letter here that I just want to kind of read to you.
Okay,
I'd like to thank the commissioners for the opportunity to be a part of the reduction in force decision-making process. It is important that the department heads are involved. They are the ones that work closely with their fellow employees and are best able to evaluate their importance in an efficiently run office. Also, I appreciate the fact that there are not any changes being considered in moving Wendy Richards or Kim Tarrant to other offices. Their knowledge and experience are critical to the day-to-day operation of Justice Court. I owe my ability to perform my duties as a Justice Court judge to their assistance and input. Given that the two options that are being considered for Justice Court are eliminate misdemeanor probation 2 positions, probation officer and assistant, or number 2, eliminate misdemeanor probation 1 position, I would prefer the second option. It is my preference to keep Cindy Grimm. She is an important employee and follows up on collections of past due fines and fees. Her efforts have made an obvious increase in the money collected. The report for the period of July 1, 2015 to June 27, 2016 shows a court-ordered $227,679 and collected $196,221 in fines and fees. The amount collected is split 50-50. Half goes to the county and half goes to the state. When Cindy has been unavailable to perform her duties, the collections fall off noticeably. Also, Mineral County Justice Court is the 8th busiest court of limited jurisdiction in the state based on statistics compiled on the Montana State website. In the casework jurisdiction with a population of 2,000 to 5,999, we are by far the busiest of the 30 courts in that category. In the past, Mineral County Justice Court has had 3 clerks, and it would make the office run more efficient if we had 3 going forward. I fully realize that the county is facing a critical budget crisis, and the commissioners will have to make the difficult decisions on where the cuts will have to be made. I just want to reiterate my appreciation to be part of the decision-making process and feel badly for those that are affected by the reduction in force action. So, I guess if I have to look at those 2 recommendations, I definitely would go with number 2 and eliminate just the one
Okay.
position.
And also know that we're not just reduction in force, but we're looking for any ideas or ways or suggestions that any savings can be had, so. But appreciate, this
Yeah.
is about reduction in force
Right.
specifically, but I want to remind everybody, we just need to find multiple ways to curtail the expenditure side of things. So Kathleen Brown?
When you say you're looking for other ways for reduction in expenditures,
I'm just
so-
reminding the totality of the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Dale's giving us his opinion on positions, which is what we need, but I'm just saying, keep your imaginations alive for any and all ways we can
Mhm.
save.
For the most part, I agree with Dale. I know this is a tough decision. The only place that I differ from Dale is that I think that misdemeanor probation and pretrial supervision is a very important part of the court system. Without that, it doesn't matter if we have anybody out on the street, excuse me, that's not getting supervised, or if they're not in jail, have made bond, nobody's checking up on them. So basically, they either stay in jail longer, which costs us more, or they're out on the street. The sheriff's office are gonna bring them back in or not. They don't have 50 guys out on the street looking for everybody. I think that having them try and comply with some conditions set by the court is just really important. Now, whether they can do that job with just misdemeanor probation, pretrial supervision, that position, and not an assistant, I don't know. I would defer to the people that actually do that, because I don't know. But my feeling for that position is that it would be a great loss for the community, just being able to feel better about somebody checking up on them. You know, it's not just UAs and it's house checks, it's, you know, just all of that stuff. So, anyway, I know that the district court judges have written me a letter with their feelings on that, and so that's my thought on that one. So
I don't disagree with you there. That's just, man, if those are the 2 options being looked at.
I know.
Get Mary's on the white too.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, and then prior to the misdemeanor position being created, it was done by the sheriff's office, so you're saying that you don't feel that misdemeanor probation can be adequately monitored
Well,
that
the
way? You need
conditions
it.
they've got, so you're leaving it so that if they come in for a UA or whatever,
Mhm.
you're having detention do it, or a deputy has to be available or something.
Mhm.
So that puts that stress on an already stressful workforce there. Where this is monitored, and we have scram bracelets, GPS, we have UAs, you know, all those different things that have been court ordered. Sometimes house arrest, I don't know, a multitude of things that, as the sheriff's office, trying to enforce all those conditions as well as doing their regular jobs, just seems like a little bit more than what could be done. Of course, you
Good.
should ask the sheriff that.
Yeah, I was
That's
gonna
my
say,
opinion.
I'd be more than happy to talk about that. you're right, Kathy. It would be very difficult for us to pick up the slack there. You know, I know since I was a deputy here in the 90s, early 90s, there was misdemeanor probation that worked part-time, that wasn't here full-time. And I don't know if that's feasible or a good option right now at the point we're at. I know, like Dale said, he's extremely busy, the probation officers are extremely busy, and it's because we've got a sheriff's office that's very proactive. Our arrests, both felonies and misdemeanors, are up tremendously. I'm not sure what the answer there is. It's a difficult decision, but I do think that there needs to be a misdemeanor probation officer in some fashion, some way, with everything that's going on. I mean, the last thing that I want to do, and I want to ask my deputies to do, is ignore an arrest that should be made. I mean, that'd be dereliction of duties, and that's against the law to do that, and I won't ask them to do that. So I think there needs to be something in place there.
So Mary, I guess I skipped you. You're on the phone. Did you want to comment on today's meeting?
Yes. So, well, of course, I'm kind of jumping ships because we're talking about probation and that. I don't know anything about that. But within my own office, with the staff that I have now with a deputy and two tax title clerks, our office is busy. We don't keep up with the work that we have going. It looks to me that you're thinking of cutting, then one of my employees would put me down to 2 employees. If I have any really sick or vacation or anything, there's not going to be enough people to keep that. And with new employees, training them, they're not able to just walk into my office and start to work that first day. There's a lot of training that goes on. The last 3 employees that I have hired, I've had to extend their probation period because they're not able to pick it up fast enough. For the lower wages that we're starting at, I don't know if that's just some of the, just the throwback from having not getting the skill set that I'm looking for. I'm looking at my notes here just a second. I know that Lori, she has even said that she'd volunteer to come in and cover when I need, and I know that I would need help over the next, I don't know how many months, but it's the same with her. She'd come in and I'd have to train her then also. With my deputy leaving, that puts more strain on my job, and, I'm not opposed to working a lot of hours, but I work and keep track of my hours now. I'm not slacking in any way now. There's just a lot. It's a busy office. There's a lot going on. First of the month, end of the month, on Fridays. It would just really, I don't know that we would be able to catch up. If I think that the morale is low now, and if we wait another 6 months with having that much work and being overworked, I don't know that I'm going to be able to keep a hold of employees. I don't know how hard an employee wants to work for the wages that have been offered. So I'm really pushing just to keep what I have. I really don't know the options of what else may be able to be cut. I know that it is a hard decision for you. I just hope that you'll make a decision on what's best for the county and its employees, and then just own it, stay with it, go with it.
So just to recap, Mary, you're saying that there are 4 of you in the office, and you're saying that you need to maintain 4 of you in the office.
Yes.
Okay. Marcia.
I passed out a little memorandum earlier
Yeah, partway through.
to all of you regarding my position on some of these cuts. I'm only going to address 2 that have been mentioned because I don't know enough about what the other departments do to understand what their needs are. I'll start with the pretrial supervision and the misdemeanor probation. As you are all aware, I strongly oppose eliminating that position, those positions. Last week, I did forward you a letter from the district court judges of the Montana 4th Judicial District urging you to consider other options. I believe that eliminating pretrial supervision and misdemeanor probation in this county will have serious impacts, both in terms of public safety and financial impacts. As of yesterday, the department had a caseload, the misdemeanor probation pretrial supervision department had a caseload of 89 individuals who are currently being supervised. Approximately 75% of those are court-ordered to pretrial supervision. Almost without exception, all felony defendants are placed on pretrial supervision by the district court. The remaining 25% are individuals who have been placed on misdemeanor probation as part of their sentences in justice court. Each supervisee or probationer has been historically charged $25 per month supervision fees. According to Mr. Cole, there has been $4,525 collected this year so far, with an additional $10,425 billed, which has not yet been collected. As of July 1st, fees for misdemeanor supervision have increased to $30 per month, and fees for pretrial supervision have increased to $45 per month. In a perfect world, this would generate revenue of approximately $3,600 per month or $43,000 per year, depending upon the caseload. We don't, however, live in a perfect world. Not every defendant is able to pay supervision fees up front. Misdemeanor probation and pretrial supervision have, since December, implemented an invoicing program and have become more proactive in attempting to collect those fees, but sometimes the defendant is simply not able to pay in a timely manner. The local rules for the Montana 4th Judicial District allow district court judges to order that defendants pay supervision fees as part of their judgments. Typically, the district courts will order unpaid supervision fees as of the date of sentencing as part of the financial obligation of the defendant, which also includes restitution, fines, fees, and surcharges. So far this year, the district court has ordered $2,170 in outstanding supervision fees as part of defendant's judgments. Obviously, a court can't order payment until disposition of a case, so supervision fees for cases that are currently pending have not yet been ordered. It's my understanding that justice court also typically orders that defendants pay outstanding supervision fees at the time of disposition, but I would defer to Dale because I'm not completely sure of that.
That's part of it, when we do the orders and conditions and all that.
Okay. Then there's the question of public safety. Ask yourselves what happens to these 89 individuals who are no longer subject to supervision. Where do they go? Depending upon their risk levels, some will be placed into the community unsupervised, relatively free to continue whatever behavior landed them into trouble in the first place, thereby compromising the safety of not only their victims, but the rest of the community as well. For others, there will be no choice but to keep them in jail. Many times jail is the only choice when community supervision is unavailable after the courts consider the safety of the community and victims, the defendant's ties to the community, flight risk, and all of the other factors courts must consider in determining whether to allow a defendant's release prior to trial. Increased numbers of defendants in custody not only decreases the amount of supervision fees which may be collected, but at the same time increases the cost to Mineral County to house these prisoners. According to jail staff, the Mineral County Jail has the capacity to hold 29 inmates. Currently, there are 19 in custody. We have had at least 2 defendants recently who have had serious medical conditions but would have been too high risk to release unsupervised into the community. If we cannot supervise these types of individuals outside of jail, Mineral County will not only bear the cost of housing them, but also the cost of their medical care. Pretrial supervision is also at times responsible or involved in the seizure of illegal drugs and cash. On a recent pretrial supervision home visit, illegal drugs were observed. A search warrant was obtained and the residence was searched. During the search, more than 5 pounds of marijuana was seized from a safe, indicating that the defendant was distributing dangerous drugs. Within that safe were also precious metals and 2 safe deposit box keys. Search warrants were obtained for the safe deposit boxes, and more than $100,000 in cash was seized. The U.S. Attorney's Office is handling the forfeiture, but Mineral County will receive a share of that money. In the absence of pretrial supervision, it won't take long for the jail to fill to capacity. This will severely curtail our ability to generate revenue by housing federal prisoners and/or overflow from other area detention facilities. You should also consider the potential loss of revenue from fines. If a defendant spends significant time in jail prior to the disposition of a case, the district court judges will typically grant them credit at a rate of $100 per day spent in jail toward their fine. It is my understanding that in a non-drug case, half of the fines go to the state and half come to the county general fund. For example, if an individual is fined $5,000 for a felony DUI in district court, $2,500 would go to the county general fund. However, if that individual cannot be supervised in the community and spends 2 months in jail prior to adjudication, the court will usually grant that person credit toward the fine at the rate of $100 per each day spent in custody. Once the person in this example serves 50 days in jail, no fine is paid and the county receives nothing. In a drug case, the entire fine typically goes to the Mineral County Drug Forfeiture Fund, and credit toward fines for time served means, again, nothing comes back to the county. In fiscal year 15-16, the district court ordered the payment of more than $49,000 in fines. It is almost certain that this amount will decrease dramatically if individuals who must remain in custody in the absence of pretrial supervision are credited $100 per day toward their jail time. In case it's not clear, in this scenario, not only does Mineral County pay the actual costs of housing the inmate, but it also loses the revenue from any fines for which credit is given. We essentially pay twice. By contrast, where defendants can be supervised in the community, they pay supervision fees to help defray the costs, and we avoid the cost of keeping them incarcerated. I also wanted to address, I was at a conference last week, and left directly from that conference to take a week-long vacation. And while I was in transit between the two, I was notified that it was being considered that the half-time deputy county attorney position in my office be cut. And given that I had been told previously that that was not something that I needed to worry about, and given that I wasn't notified of that until I was out of town, I felt like it was important for me to come back and address that issue directly. The deputy county attorney position is a half-time position, which pays $23 per hour for a total of $24,840 per year plus payroll taxes and PERS. The county does not pay for insurance for this position because it's a half-time position. By statute, a $20 county attorney surcharge for each felony and a $15 county attorney surcharge for each misdemeanor for which a defendant is adjudicated guilty or forfeits bond must be deposited with the treasurer or finance officer and used to pay the salary of a deputy county attorney and other salaries in the county attorney's office. On June 21st, I asked some questions of the finance department of how this money is currently being used within the county, such as where is that statutory surcharge going? How are the funds being earmarked for county attorney's office salaries? And is there a special fund for these surcharges? I asked this question because we had recently learned that the victim witness surcharge had erroneously been sent to the state for the last several years, and I wanted to ensure that something similar was not happening with these surcharges because they both originate from the same statute. The answer I received is that, quote, both the JP and district court deposit collections based on what is programmed in their full court software program. To change where revenue is being deposited, the Supremes must approve, end quote. I still don't know where that money is actually going, and how it is being earmarked for county attorney office salaries. That having been said, I did some math on the surcharges. In fiscal year 14-15, there were 2,150 misdemeanors which were adjudicated guilty or for which bond was forfeited, for a total of $32,250 in county attorney surcharges. In fiscal year 15-16, there were 1,856 misdemeanors which were adjudicated guilty or for which bond was forfeited, for a total of $27,840 in county attorney surcharges. Additionally, in fiscal year 15-16, another $1,060 was ordered for county attorney surcharges in district court. The county attorney's office also contracts, as you will recall, with the town of Alberton to provide legal services. For this, the county receives $6,000 a year. The purpose of taking on this contract was to help fund the deputy county attorney position. The deputy county attorney primarily prosecutes misdemeanors in both Justice Court and Alberton Town Court, but also helps with some felony prosecutions and civil matters. The current caseload for the half-time deputy position is roughly equal to the caseload of a full-time deputy county attorney in Missoula County. My felony caseload is one of the largest in the state, and our staff is also overburdened when compared with other jurisdictions. I was told 2 weeks ago by the Human Resource Department that there was, quote, no way my office could run with less personnel, and that cuts were not being contemplated in my office. Regardless of whether and why that perception has since changed, eliminating the deputy county attorney makes no sense because the position more than pays for itself. Losing the position would seriously cripple our ability to keep up with our criminal caseload, and our ability to timely assist with county civil matters would suffer tremendously. Eliminating the position would require the county attorney's office to triage cases, resulting in fewer cases filed and prosecuted, and the corresponding decrease in the collection of fines and surcharges as discussed previously. This would also impact our victims. If we are forced to triage criminal cases, it is inevitable that some cases would be dismissed or not filed in the first place, leaving victims with little to no recourse for obtaining closure or restitution for their losses. I came up with some alternative options in terms of cuts, which potentially could be made. It doesn't appear that any cuts have been contemplated in the commissioner's office. During the county compensation board meeting, it was suggested by a citizen member that the commissioner's salary be more commensurate with the number of actual hours worked. Currently, the commissioners are each paid half of the base salary of the clerk and recorder plus $2,000 per year, suggesting that this has been envisioned as a half-time position. I would propose the following. 1, increase county commissioners to 1 full day each per week on a rotating basis plus meeting days. This comes to approximately 1,024 hours per year, assuming full 8-hour days. Eliminate the commissioner assistant position. Require the clerk and recorder's office to assume the duties of ensuring minutes are taken. With commissioners in the courthouse a total of 4 days per week, there should not be any reason that phone calls and emails cannot be answered in a timely fashion. Eliminate the human resource director position. Part of the reason this position was created was to shift non-legal duties from the county attorney's office to the commissioner's office. This has not worked as anticipated. Communication between human resources and legal counsel, both in county and at MACO, has been poor. In fact, after I requested for the umpteenth time that on June 24th that my office be kept advised of communications between HR and MACO, I was advised by the Human Resources Director that she would no longer be communicating directly with MACO Personnel Services and that all communication would go through my office. This seems to me to make the position completely superfluous since it places the majority of the burden in most human resource issues back in the county attorney's office. Place the personnel portion, health insurance, maintaining personnel files, etc., and the safety portion of the position either into the finance department or back into the clerk and recorder's office. Eliminate the maintenance assistant position and place a moratorium on any special projects currently being contemplated. While money is tight, we should not be doing any special projects in the courthouse except on an emergency basis. Allow maintenance to focus on cleaning the public areas of the courthouse. Each department should be ensuring that their own workspace is relatively clean, with perhaps weekly deeper cleaning by maintenance. Consider not renewing the contract with the finance consultant at the expiration of the current contract. It was the understanding of those of us who attended discussions regarding this issue that the position would be, quote, capped at $20,000. There was significant discussion of that cap in the commissioner meeting on September 25th, 2015. The purpose of the cap was to avoid paying out more money than was anticipated or that the county could afford. That cap is apparently not reflected in the contract, which I was not sent for review prior to it being signed. And as of June 2nd, the county has paid upwards of $24,000. Until recently, it was being represented to me that the finance consultant contract was essentially paying for itself, locating money in old funds which had been overlooked. However, given the current financial crisis, I am questioning the significance of the amounts of located funds that were involved. To my knowledge, no bill has been presented for the financial consulting for the month of June. Option number 7, I have it misnumbered as 6. Eliminate pretrial and misdemeanor supervision assistant. While I strongly support retaining this service, it is my belief that it can be done effectively by one person. I would certainly defer to personnel in that department regarding their workload and the feasibility of eliminating the position. I just want to thank all of you in advance for consideration of these concerns and of the potential alternatives that I've presented.
Stacy?
Well, I don't envy you guys by any means. I know all of us feel like we can't. I mean, there's reasons that the offices are staffed the way that they are. Mary's office, for one, is the only office within the county that legally is allowed to close from noon to 1 for lunch hour. And she doesn't, because it's convenience for county constituents and whatnot. She would be forced to do that because they're required to have 2 people on, because of the money situation in her office. My office, obviously, there's trainings, there's illnesses, there's vacation, there's the whole works. You can't do an office like that with one person. From a former payroll sort of a status, I'm not sure even what the numbers are as far as dispatcher detention. I just know that when our office did the payroll, if anybody was out for vacation or sick leave or training, then that brings up all the overtime. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how you fix that, but I know, and I know something has to be done. This isn't new. It didn't just come up over the last 6 years. It's been progressively, because things change, things grow, but unfortunately our tax base has not. I worry about like the scenario, and I didn't bring the copy of the memo down of what your considerations or what you were looking at was, but the dispatch and detention positions, you eliminate those, it's going to create the aftermath of the overtime, and I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but that's just one of those things that maybe wasn't isn't in the forefront that needs to be considered before that happens. As far as just to touch on the finance officer and human resources was brought up to help our office for one thing, and not bashing on you, Charlie, but you have other jobs, so you're not always in here. I get the constant overflow of the phone calls or can I pick up the paperwork from you? And I don't have any of that in my office anymore. Then there's the issue of at any particular point in time, an employee comes up and wants to see their personnel file. You have to provide it to them then. the finance director, my understanding of what that position was supposed to be through any of the public meetings, and I could be completely wrong, was that it was to take care of the major financial reports and the budgeting. I think that can be done for far less than $20,000, and far less than, I don't know, nothing against you, Jess, either, but she's been here awful lot of hours the last month and a half that hasn't been turned in yet. I don't know what the answer is. Obviously, that position for the reporting and for the budgeting is necessary, but I don't know what the rest of the purpose is. And I don't know what your answers are. I feel for you. I don't know what else to.
Ronnie and Tom.
Gosh, it's, I mean, I'd echo everything that everyone has said so far. It's funny listening to them. It's a lot of what they said are thoughts that I think of too. I'll say this publicly for the record. I think any cuts within public safety is not good, obviously. I think we're working on a crew that is skeleton anyway. We could definitely use more deputies, as busy as we are. And I know and I appreciate what you three are doing and the hard decisions you're going to have to make. This is not personal, not with us, not with me. To lay off a deputy would definitely impact public safety in a negative way. Like I've said before, our arrests, both felony and misdemeanors, are up substantially. Laying off a deputy will create more overtime. There's no question about it. And I just think at the end of the day, it would create more overtime than it would to just keep them on. That's what I'm concerned about, that it's just going to cost us more by doing that than to lay them off. So the other thing that needs to be considered that's bad for us, if we lay off a deputy, then we can't use reserve deputies. We've got two that we use, one especially that we use a lot, as you know. To lay off a deputy, then they're not available to us as reserves. We can't use them, and there's times when we absolutely need that, during the fair and some of the summer months. So to do that would be like cutting our head off. Of the three proposals that you've offered, Roman, the one I'm most adamantly opposed to is losing a deputy for those reasons. Detention officers, and unfortunately my undersheriff and I got to experience that firsthand with the strike, how busy and an eye-opener it was for us. I know he's worked it full-time in Missoula County, and it's done a little differently, of course, but we work with what we have and do the best we can with what we have. If all they have to deal with are jail stuff, you could do it with one a day. But they've got medical appointments, they've got court, they've got a lot of different things they do in addition to just the jail, where one person could never do it. There's no way. And we, as deputies, pick up a lot of that slack too. But that takes us off the street, and that affects public safety. The other thing that it's going to do is create more overtime. They'll have to have overtime to pick up those areas where it's not just the jail that they're dealing with. It's the medical, it's the court stuff, transports here and there. So that's pretty essential to dispatch. That's an extremely, it's not something that we see as a public so much, how stressful it is. It's an extremely stressful job. In fact, I think it's more stressful than what we do on the street as police officers. Can you imagine Dallas yesterday. With what they had to deal with. That, losing a dispatcher, again, that's gonna create more overtime. As busy as we're getting, and as, with the budget and everything else, and everything that Ronnie has to deal with, in a perfect world, I'd like to see Ronnie just do administrative stuff. That she could, I mean, there's so much to do that a lot of it, she's doing it, but it could be done better if she had more time to do it. It's hard for me to really say much more about misdemeanor probation, but it will create overtime. It will cost us more, not only from a deputy standpoint, but the cost that will be incurred because these people will have to be jailed. I think there's ways to do that, and I think that we've presented them. You know, one of the issues that Marcia brought up was I know you guys, you do a tremendous job. You do. There's no question. I'm not gonna bash that one bit, but I know you get paid quite a bit. Have you guys considered giving back a little bit to help this? Okay, good. The human resource, we've never had a human resource position until now, and Charlie's, you know, I mean, she's taken it. She's very busy. There's many days when she's not available that I need stuff and I can't get it because she's off doing other things, and that's.
Yeah, is she not a full-time?
Yeah,
email?
because we
right.
cut
And I
that
know
position
that, I know.
from full-time to half-time.
I know that. I know, but that's my point, that there's times when I need stuff that I can't get it, and we talked about it, you know, right after she took over. So I'm not sure what the hard answer for that is. I know what we did before was working, with having, you know, you take
Our
care of
office
things.
is open, I mean, it has to be open 8
Right.
to 5,
Yep,
with the occasional, if there's only one of us in there, obviously somebody has to go to lunch, or that's overtime as well.
yep.
And,
Yep.
sorry, I just want to just interject in here real quick. I know, and I totally appreciate Lori has offered to step up and help, you know, cover absences and stuff. But like Mary said, it's the same thing, other than answering phones and like stamping documents, or it really isn't all that feasible or all that helpful, because then you've got another person to train. And it's nothing against you, that would be if anybody decided to step in and try to help another office. There's that training that isn't, you know, anyway, but that's along those lines.
That was the nice thing about having Adam do everything that he does. You know, when we got our grant to help out with domestic violence stuff and him helping out with that, we didn't have to send him to any training because he was already trained up. So if he ends up going, that grant's not going to go away. So we'll have to hire someone to take it over. And hopefully it's someone that has some experience, so we don't have to send them to training and incur more cost because of that. So that's another reason we need them. The other thing that I've noticed too is there's other departments within the county that have multiple employees that there's no proposal cuts within those departments. That's especially bothersome to me when I look at the proposals for public safety, and obviously one of the proposals is 3 cuts. When you're talking about public safety and you take 3 people out of that mix, that's a substantial risk to public safety. I think that something that should be considered is some of the other areas, so that we don't have to, you know, potentially lose 3 employees. And there's no question, there's a need for a financial person. Jessica's done amazing work and has worked very closely with Ronnie and I on things that we can do better from the sheriff's office perspective. I'm just not sure that we need to spend as much money, $65 an hour, I think what it is, you know, to have a financial person. There's no question she's definitely worth it, but but in light of everything that's happening, I'm not sure that's the right way to go. You know, there's no question we need somebody. But that's where I go back to Ronnie and having her be more administrative. It would help us financially too, to have her available to do that all the time. And again, like everybody said, these are tough times in Mineral County, and you know, when I came back, I knew coming in that there would be challenges financially. There's just not a lot of money here. That's just the way it is. There's no way we can get around that. And I certainly didn't come back for the money. I could still be making 4 times what I'm making an hour now with, I'll tell you what, a lot less stress. So I appreciate what you're doing. I don't envy the decisions you have to make, and just want to thank you guys for what you've done and will continue to do.
I would echo that as well, and I would also say that as a taxpayer, I would rather wait a little longer in line for my license plates than wait a little longer if I have to make a 911 call.
Well, it's going to be more than just waiting a little bit in line. It's ever being able to keep up with the workload, the reports that I have to send to the state for the schools and their lots, the money that I have to get to the state by the 20th each month, or there's penalties if I'm unable to, that kind of stuff. I'm not worried about the customers because we've handled them as quickly as we can. We always have. It's the reporting that scares me a little bit.
And Mary, I was not picking on you. That was maybe a poor example. My point was, it seems to me, and I think others have mentioned this as well, it seems to me that the largest cuts are being considered in essential services. I mean, I think, you know, are there other places? Are there other places that you can make cuts that would not impact public safety?
And as far as like Mary's thing about the sending her money to her reports and stuff to the state by the 20th, again, I'm not picking on Jess by any means, but at $65 an hour, having Jessica have to do the JVs that were something that if there was a new one or something that was different, we always ran by either Jessica or, you know, Nicole Noonan at the time anyway to make sure it was done correctly. But like the every month ones at $65 an hour when there was absolutely no problem with the way those were being done, I mean, is that something that she should have to spend her time doing? And Mary always had her, I always had her JVs back to her within a day or two of when she gave them to me. There's times she's waiting until the last minute because Jessica's busy. I mean, she's got other stuff to do too. I don't know, again, that's not going to help a whole lot, but it's little things like that that maybe there's no reason to be putting under somebody who's $65 an hour when it's not changing my wage if I'm in the office an extra hour to do their stuff. I don't know.
From the health department, I see we have Peggy and Jen.
Well, I'm listening to everybody, and I want to tell you that we really went back and took a hard look at our general fund budget. We actually cut and saved, I think, about $15,000 right off the top, and that's cutting it to the bare bones. But I also want you guys to understand the bigger picture of public health. So, for one, the Montana law says that we are to provide public health services or public health mandates to our community. So we do that in spite of the Board of Health actually being in charge of it. That's what we do. We kind of took a look at it because we wanted to compare what it would cost bare minimum for public health in Mineral County. We figured 1 RN and probably 1 support staff, and that's comparable to what the sanitarian's position has right now. So we looked at 1 RN's salary, and with the benefits And we looked at that, and it is less, it would cost us less than what or I should say that again. It would cost us more than the total budget that we have right now, discounting, subtracting the income that we have coming in. So, for instance, right now, after we adjusted our budget, our total budget after our revenue is $77,304. For one RN, 1 year, salaries would be, what was that? $80,000
With the support staff.
with the support staff. So we took a look at that, and then we went through we thoroughly assessed our staffing and our non-essential cost, and then we looked at the total general fund. Right now, general fund supports 9 employees, most of whom live in Mineral County, pay taxes, like I said, for the total cost of $77,304, or $56,300 if our discretionary funds were used to subtract, because we do have some discretionary funds to be able to assist. So really, the bottom line is $56,000 and $56,304 to support public health services at the general fund. Now,
I need to clarify though that the general fund does not support those 9 employees. We actually only have a 1.7 FTE, 1.0 administrative assistant, and then a 0.7 RN. Except for the summer months, there's a little bit more nurse FTE. So the rest of our employees are all grant. And so almost every single one of us lives in Mineral County, pays taxes, etc. So I think it's pretty amazing that we can support that many people with a budget of $56,000.
You went quick, Jen. 1.7 FTE, and what was the other one?
Yeah, so 1.7 FTE, 1.0 is an administrative assistant if we combine what we have for our 2 people who are wearing our hats, and then a 0.7 RN. During the summer months.
Those are what you calculated are paid up from the general fund.
Yes. During the summer months, our school nurses are paid out of the general fund for about 10 weeks. So the total numbers that Peggy's giving you of 77,000 before using discretionary funds, or 56 after, that includes the whole picture. So the 1.7 RN and administrative with the summer RNs. So when we look at the 3 things that were proposed, we really did go back to the grindstone. We even looked at selling our car and how much it was worth, and offering that back to the general fund. But we looked at our supplies. We looked at making only black and white color, printing fees. We're getting rid of. We're getting rid of all of our phones except for one that our nurses are going to share for public health emergencies. We really tried to be creative and cut as much as possible. So I'm not sure if other departments can do some of that. I think that they're, like you said in the beginning, looking beyond just the reduction in force. I don't know if this is enough time to make that happen, but.
Right. Well, thanks for those ideas.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I wanted to mention too, because there was something about using the FEP grant and having somebody else come in and take that over. And I wanted to kind of review that grant a little bit, and to be qualified to even do that grant, the training you would need is the IC 200, 300, and 700. So you would have to, in the beginning, take those courses in order to be qualified to even implement the grant, as well as getting yourself familiarized with the grant. And right now, the administrative assistant has 30 hours coming out of that, which she is fully qualified in all of the IC's requirements that this grant is saying that you need in order to implement it. And then again, she gets 10 hours out of general fund. So we're trying to be creative in how we can cut expenses, because we need an administrative assistant there to help with all the numerous duties she has. And we're really only paying $10 or 10 hours out of the general fund for her. We did find some monies in the Fed grant to help with covering the insurance part of that position. So we came up with, I believe it was like $3,300 to help offset health insurance for the Fed grant for that position. And then I also wanted to, we wanted to look at how much, because I was curious as to how much immunizations brought in this year. And so I had, so we looked at that for last fiscal year, and immunizations brought in $21,665. We spent $18,000 approximately, so that gives us about $6,000 to help support the biller position. That along with, that what the actual costs, the discretionary funds that we have there are $32,000. So that along with that and reducing the cost to the county to looking at $56,304 is pretty reasonable compared to what it would cost you if we actually got rid of everybody and only had one nurse and one admin. Does that make sense? Sorry I wasn't real clear about it, but I get nervous in big crowds. So I just want to go over,
we kind of went over some of the things that we decided that we went through to cut funds, but we found additional money to help support some of the health insurance costs, about $7,000 worth, to offset for this year. And then moving forward, we could consider, revisiting school nurse contracts or things like that. There's other ways we can go with the health insurance portion. The biggest thing I want to leave with you, there's two things, is that the $77,000 that we're proposing is only 16% of our entire operating budget. It's really not very much. And last year we did have a $46,783 reduction in our budget, which was 24% of it. So we're already getting skinnier off of what we've had from last year.
That was from your proposed budget, not actually the budget from the prior year, wasn't it, though?
So we had submitted a budget for fiscal year 16, and then $46,000 were cut from it, which was okay. We made it work.
Yeah, I was just pointing out the difference between the actual budget of the year before versus your dream budget versus what actually became. I'm just pointing that out.
Yeah, that's good. Good.
Right.
Thank you for clarifying that.
So I think in lieu of what Jen's saying, it really should be a fair cut across the board. And I understand that the needs of all of the departments, but it shouldn't be the burden of one or two. It should be everyone, including the sanitarian position. And it's my understanding too, that position receives meals in order to support them. Well, let me tell you how public health really does operate in the real world and in the federal world. You have your board of health, you have your health officer, you have the director of public health, and then you have all of your other systems such as immunization department, communicable disease department, sanitarian department, listed beneath that. One of the things you could think about is combining the sanitarian budget and my budget, or the health department budget, to help defer costs. And we could share those meals to help support public health, because ultimately sanitarian environmental is part of public health. It is not two separate entities.
We already kind of have him combined, but that's an idea. We can do one more, but currently the county planner and the county sanitarian is one person. So that has already been kind of a dual.
But it's separate from public health.
Right.
And public health is the ultimate.
I just mean other counties have two distinct separate people that do those jobs, and we have one person that does both of those.
Yeah. And I'm just saying.
Yeah, and Tim's not here, but.
Maybe we
yeah.
cut that sanitarian position and house them under there where we can really cut and make it more efficient, because we can combine
Mhm.
a lot of expenses under, one budget.
I'll have to, I don't think Tim's, Candace, is Tim,
He's out today.
do you know anything about this, or should I try to call him?
I would talk to him.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know that he's in the area though.
Okay.
But I just would encourage you to look at, and the reason why I'm kind of expressing this, and you guys have all heard about accreditation for public health. And public health, one of the pieces of accreditation is that we combine all public health services under the heading of the Board of Health and the health officer. And really, if you think about it, it's just more efficient, because the communication process between those departments would be better, as well as the workload, because you can share that, because public health and foodborne outbreaks is one in which we have to work closely together. But I would again, I think my team has done an exceptional job in reviewing where we absolutely could cut, and we have come up with a deduction of about 15 grand. We would encourage that you use the 32,000 discretionary dollars that we have, that we earned, to apply it to this fiscal year and leave things remain, because ultimately, if you look at what it's going to cost you, I think we've shown a savings without having a reduction in staff. And if you would like to sit down with me and have me show you, or Jim, I'd be more than happy to do that. Our budgets have always been very complicated. It's always been a real struggle for me to provide public health services in a creative way that does not cost the county huge dollars, but the services we provide in the schools, our immunization services, our communicable disease investigation, dog bites, is, half that's by law. And part of that, like I said, we talked about the school contracts a little bit. Well, they cover part of the public health services we have to provide. So. Oh, yeah, well, and you know that we did not replace one employee, so one nursing position.
Oh,
So,
the retirement.
yeah. And to let you know, the payout for that one RN can come out of discretionary funds, which we have. And that could be included, so your savings there would also be. And there's one other place that we can save, but I really can't, because it's part of a savings off of a amount that we have in a grant, the Dept grant. I can only use it for specific things in public health, so we can divert some cost to immunizations and communicable disease outbreaks. But I can't take that amount and say, we're gonna do X amount out of there, because it would have to come up as we need it. So, for example, when we do our off-site immunization clinics for flu, we can pay for the staffing out of that source. Or if we have a really emergent communicable disease, like an outbreak of pertussis in the schools, which we had, or an outbreak of chickenpox, we can use those funds to assist with that. So, there are some funds we have that we can help defer from general fund, and we have in the past. So,
Okay. Kevin Chamberlain, in your department, any comment?
Well, we've cut the extension budget, we've cut 4,000, and that's in wage savings with Emily in place versus Sharon in place. We were already about as far down as we could get and still operate. So that was really the only spot where I could chop without, a lot of our activities, I won't say most, but a lot of our activities come out of the Community Development Block Grant Fund as activities. Those are non-tax dollars. Those are monies we earn through Community Development Block Grants, through the loans, through all those sorts of things. The county pays half. Agent salary is figured at 65% of the clerk and recorder's salary, minus the steps and minus longevity. So I cost the county right around $23,000. Of that $23,000, 1/4 of that comes out of CDBG, which is non-tax dollars. So you can figure out from that I'm costing you around 18 grand. Dave is in the same boat. He's half-time weed, half-time extension, and half of his half comes out of the extension budget. Emily is 3/4 time extension and 1/4 time economic development. 1/4 of her pay comes out of economic development. All of our copier expenses, our capital improvement in terms of computers, which we haven't bought in about 6 years. All of that stuff usually comes out of the economic development side. So there isn't too much. We have $400 in travel, and that's usually about one trip to Bozeman, of which we make 4 or 5, and I only charge the county 1. So personally, I'm picking up costs to make the thing work. ED is picking up costs to make the thing work. I don't know where else to really go to the point where the 4-H is now buying their own publications. The county used to provide them. That's $600 to $800 a year that the families are having to put out. We're charging a membership fee to 4-H. The council has a fund for folks that can't afford it to make it available to everybody. And these are things that we've been doing over the years to try and keep our footprint on the county budget as minimal as possible. I don't have a whole bunch of room to chop anymore without, I don't know what, shut the doors, I guess. We do have monies coming in for their relationship with Lake County Community Development and the Consolidated Regional Development Corporation. They're coming in with right around $3,000 to offset Emily's salary, who is my administrative assistant, for those that don't know my office, for May and June of last year. That's actually going to be cash that comes back into the budget. And I've got to visit with Jessica, but I think that money can be funneled into extension to cover the $14,000 or $1,400 in cash that we're short. So we'll have a zero there. They're also forecasting for this coming year to come in with roughly $13,000 to offset the cost to the Community Development Block Grant Fund 2942. That is a fixed fund. There's no tax dollars going to it, as I said earlier. When that money's gone, it's gone. The only thing we make off of that is 6% off of the loans that we operate through the revolving loan fund. So we try and keep expenses as minimal there as possible because it's a fixed amount. So this is really helping to have this grant money come in from Lake County Community Development to put money back into that fund to support operations. And we're allowed to take 18% administrative, and then we're allowed to support activities out of that fund. But that's a result of the 4 community development block grants that we've written since 1994, which is through those grants and other grants that were facilitated by those, we brought roughly $6 million into the county through those activities. So we've tried to make money rather than cost money. I'll shut up. I don't know what else to cut.
Finance Director Jessica, did you want to make any comments or insight? Okay. Open the floor to the public. Any public comments?
So I know for me, when I have decisions to make, that affect obviously a lot of people, I'll bounce stuff off of Ronnie and my undersheriff a lot. I don't know if they want to say anything here or not that I've missed that we should talk about as well.
Well, I mean, keep in mind that, you know, most people don't understand what the deputies actually do other than, you know, we're out there writing tickets and this sort of thing. But, you know, on occasion, more often than not, we're dealing with some pretty violent crimes out there. Roman assisted us here just a week and a half ago. It could have been really ugly. It was a standoff. You know, and then when you look at detention officers, where they, understand that these guys are locked in a building, in a room with 8, 10 inmates that are violent offenders, among other things, with nothing. But they're, you know, verbal judo at best. And if they decide to take it out on one of them, and they're all alone, you know, and they can say, oh, my son, he fell and he's in the cell, you gotta come in here and help him. And he goes in to assist, and then now there's 8 of them in there beating him to death. And they call a deputy, and there's only one of us out 90% of the time, and we're in Saltese. The dispatcher's just gonna be able to stand there and watch it. And there's nothing they can do, because they can't go out there. Now they've lost the whole facility. I mean, keep those things in mind when you're doing these type of cuts, because it directly affects people's lives and their well-being. You know, and on the other hand, me, the sheriff, Ronnie, both, you know, publicly say we are totally against any layoffs in public safety.
Just because it does put the public in more jeopardy. Not because we feel like we're getting picked on. It's not that. It's with the public in mind.
We always try to live within our means.
Well, and when there is something that we think is essential that we need to buy, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to Ronnie and say, let's look at that budget. Where are we? Is this gonna impact us come the end of June in a negative way? I mean, can we afford to do this? And there has been a lot of things that I said, no, we're not gonna do that. But there's been some things that I said, let's buy it because we can afford it. It's not, I think there's the misconception that we're just buying to buy because we do have the money to do it. That's not the case. It's just when we buy something, it's something that I feel is essential to doing our job better.
So for smaller kinds of expenses, every office in the county has a post office box. If we had one post office box, we're not talking thousands and thousands of dollars here, but we're probably talking I don't I mean, I don't know what mine is, over $100 a year.
I think they're like 120 or something every.
For the whole county, it's $800.
I mean, it's small, but one post office box and it can just be divided out. I mean, just small things if everybody's just willing to work with.
Yeah, I think, I remember this, we brought this idea up before and there was a little bit more resistance, so I'm kind of glad to hear that a little bit more people
Well,
have softened their stance on that, because I think that would be something we need to do too.
We kind of already, like if the post office gets something that just says Mineral County, 300 River Street, they throw it in our box because they know we're gonna find whoever it goes to. There's, you know, and we could move where the slots were or whatever, but I mean, we already spend a few minutes every day taking, you know, we get a lot of Dale's and Kathleen's mail and, you know, we get you guys' mail. It's not that big of a deal to switch them all to one box. And certainly we already have to go over there every day anyway because of the recording. It's not like it's gonna kill our office or whatever if that's something you wanna do to, I guess we'd be willing to distribute since the treasurer's office sends it out. I mean, like she said, it's not huge, but it's little things like that that can consolidate and help.
One thing to add, I'm thinking that maybe listening to some of the department heads, so they were saying we should look at all of the departments, and not all of the departments are on that list. I think maybe we should just say, because later this afternoon, you guys will be discussing it and making your decision. I think you may want to say at this point that those other departments that aren't on the list might be considered also. I think it should be even a little broader than.
Yeah, I mean, like.
But I just think it should be said that maybe this afternoon, maybe you'll consider what everybody said, and you might, cut a department that wasn't on the list. So I just think that should be said publicly, just in case you do make that decision.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we have to consider all the departments, even maybe none that have been examined as closely so far. I mean, there's even people, some of the public has even suggested to me at home, putting HR back on the clerk and recorder's office, requiring employees to pay a portion of their health insurance. That's been another idea. These are all the ideas encompassing that we have to, because, who wants to lay off somebody? This is going to be pretty hard because I agree. I mean, we have statutory requirements in public safety. We have statutory requirements to meet services to the public in all these other offices as well. It's going to be really hard because, I want everybody to get the good service, and I don't want anyone to not have a job. But again, I don't think any of us commissioners want to be in this seat. If the county goes into basically negative reserves or bankrupt, that wouldn't be a fun. I mean, for all of us, we care about the county, and we want the county to thrive, survive, and be a good place to live. And so we have to look at what we can do that still meets the statutory requirements of public service, but does it more efficiently. So, and my intention is to be down here more after I retire from the road to help and maybe even learn some training, but for sure to help Mary stuff envelopes at tax time, and for sure to help you.
Do that.
I can help you carry some voting boxes wherever you're going. I mean,
we go back and we do try to do that too. We help each other's stuff and fold and lick and stick. And I think the only department that's safe at the moment probably is the road department, because they don't use any tax dollars.
Yeah.
But I.
Peggy, you had your hand?
Yeah, when we as nurses get in a situation like this and we see that there is an issue, we need to really look at where the problem arises from. Because unless you don't look at how did we get here? How did we get here? How can we prevent this from occurring again? And I think really the biggest responsibility that right now is take a look at those processes and really put in some safety nets to where we can guard against ever doing that again, because as we all share, it was a great surprise to us as well as you that we are this badly in debt. So we really need to take a look at those processes and evaluate how we can not repeat what we've been through now. And, sometimes that means looking at ourselves and taking responsibilities as to what we can do too. And that includes department heads.
Right.
This isn't something that just came up overnight. It's been, costs increase, but the income doesn't necessarily.
Patty Curtin.
I just have a question with regards to, with these layoffs that you're planning, do you have a number in mind of how many people you're planning on laying off?
Well,
Or is it a number?
We have a targeted number, which of course the lion's share of money savings translates into salaries. We can talk about the P.O. box numbers, and we can talk about other things, but yeah, that's why a reduction in force is absolutely on the table. But
So then just sticking with the people that you're wanting to do the reduction in force on, that income that you will garner from that, it's going to go into the reserves, is that correct? Because you're trying to build up your reserves, that's the.
Yeah,
goal?
and the reserve, Jessica, help me out, it's not necessarily a slush fund reserve.
No, not right now. So, you know, we've ran numbers, preliminary numbers, just to balance the general fund and public safety. You're looking at, right now, we have about a $400,000 deficit that needs to be corrected, and that would leave us with pretty much zero cash at the end of the year, not creating any reserves.
So with these layoffs, how much are you planning on recouping for the county?
I don't think we're gonna recoup, I think we're just dead neutral, aren't we? I mean, we're trying to,
We have 6
Yeah.
people
At
in
this-
dispatch.
At this point, we're simply just trying to have revenues equal expenditures, right? So, because we can't have expenditures exceed revenue anymore, because there's no more cash to tap into to make up that difference, right? So all we're doing at this point really is to make revenue equal expenditures and try to do a balanced budget. We're not even building cash reserves. Maybe if there's a whole bunch of other cuts in supplies and different things that I don't foresee, maybe at that point, but as of, it's just the basic type of stuff.
So with the layoffs, there's not like a number, like I'm gonna lay off 10 people equal $25,000 a person, that kind of thing? We're talking $250,000, is that kind of what you're thinking?
It's more dollar related, you know, and need, I think how they're gonna look at it, I mean, I'm not sure, but, you know, it's, we need a dollar amount that we need to save, and they're gonna go department by department and look to see, in the end, they'll decide who they think is, what department could afford to lose someone, I guess.
So with all that said, where does that leave us next year or the future? What's gonna happen then? If we kind of looked into that crystal ball?
well, it'd be nice to know what the value of our mill is this year, and we usually don't get that till September. That would be a welcome surprise if
We'll
it
get
was,
that by the end of July.
oh, end of July, okay.
Sometimes.
Mhm. So that's because we get all of our money from the state. The property taxes aren't assessed or appraised by the county commissioners, it's by the state. And the state not only appraises your home and what it's worth, but then they go and they tell us what the property in our county is worth and what money we will receive from them.
And the calendar's kind of backwards as far as Department of Revenue doesn't have to, you know, they can't get that figure to us until August virtually, because it's the last week in July usually, if that early, but, it's kind of weird that they don't have to have that, but our fiscal year starts, you know,
July 1.
a month earlier.
Obviously, it's probably on everybody's mind. I mean, do we have to go through this again next year for more cuts, do you think? I mean, is it?
Well, if we can balance the
That's
budget,
if we
hopefully.
can- If we can start now and get it balanced now, then we can move forward. You know, I've already told them that I've given up part of my salary. I don't put in for mileage. From the time I've took this job, I go to, I don't know how many meetings a week. I don't put in for mileage. I mean,
Well, I'm the same way. I don't,
You know-
I didn't put in for any of my per diem stuff when I went to MSPOA. In fact, I'm not gonna go next year just to help save some money. The other thing that I'm doing personally to help is I've been talking to VA to start getting my med through them so it doesn't cost the county anything and then, you know, I don't know if I can do it. You know, to do all my medical through the VA so it doesn't, I can just drop me, I don't know if I can do that or not.
Well,
but it's something I'm looking at.
We checked it with Mako yesterday, as far as health insurance goes. Yes, we do have the Cadillac plan. So could we go to the lesser plan for all the county employees? But because of the open enrollment, we can't do it till next May. But that's something that we're looking at for next year, is to do something with the health insurance.
With that being said. how about
What's
looking
that?
at- With that being said, how about looking at other companies? Mako's not cheap.
Well,
There's other companies that offer comparable coverage for less money.
Yeah, I mean,
we need to look at.
we're willing to look at everything. I mean,
We've talked about this, and I also think it would be fair in most, in other places, and we're talking hospitals because we're nurses, if you work part-time, you have to pay a percentage of the health insurance. So, you know, if you're gonna go look at that, compare what it would cost, you know, how many employees are full-time, half-time, and what that would save you, you know, before you start changing plans, and then maybe look at changing plans, you know, at some point and see what the savings are.
but because of the open enrollment and
Yeah.
everything, that's,
But I'm talking
I mean,
next year, because we talked about that too, and that's something, next year, I think the health department would be open to doing, so.
And those ideas, like Boone said, you know, every year there's a health insurance committee at the county, so that's when all the county employees talk about staying in it, changing the plan, doing this, and so we take their recommendations, so that's good for next year, maybe get involved and see what else is an option.
And the thing that you have to be real careful with switching insurance plans, everybody, they're salespeople, so they come in and they say, okay, we can undercut, you know, we can give this plan for, I know they're paying this now, and they really give you a good deal at the beginning, but then you've got a 50.
the next year we
and
went
you're
through
locked
that
in
at
for a
Tricon.
contract.
It seems
So
like we
then-
were changing insurances
Yeah.
all the
We
time.
take bids every year,
Yeah.
and whoever
Yeah.
gives us the best bid, so you're not held, you know.
It
not
depends on the
held-
contract situation though, Kathy, because like Mako, when we first switched, it was like I think a 3 or 4 year, and EBMS, the one before Mako, was the same way. And I don't know if it's different because it's government or what, but we've been held to a contract of, okay, you're stuck with us now for X number of years. So for that term, you are.
But our health insurance premium has not gone up
No.
in 3 years.
No,
So,
it's been really,
it's been the
And
same.
it is a very
so-
good health.
it's amazing.
We
And
only
I,
contract for 1 year, so we're not held under the
Yeah.
county.
Yeah, and we're not locked into
No.
it now.
Yeah,
When
you
you
don't
first
wanna
go
be.
with them.
Yeah,
you
no,
first
it's just
go
when
with
you
them.
first
It's
sign
not
up.
in business
Yeah.
sense to be locked in for 3 years.
No, it was a 2-year, I believe.
I can't remember.
with
I just
Mako.
knew that
Yeah.
there was something that in order to, get us on there, they said we had to stay. But it's just that's just part of the game. I mean, they do that, and I think that with the low pay that most of the employees get, that insurance is one of the things that you can offer to help them out. However, stuff needs to be.
I have a question. How much longer are we under obligation to the internet? DIS?
Yeah, Charlie would have to look up.
Okay.
We just renewed a contract.
I think it's an annual contract.
It is an annual contract.
Yeah, initially it was 3 years, and now it's annual.
The cost to replace them with an in-house person, in-house IT person, would be far more expensive than what we're paying them.
But I was thinking with other IT bids.
Oh,
And then service servers.
Candace, did Tim have anything you were supposed to say on behalf of his office? No?
Nope.
Okay, didn't want to miss you.
Can I clarify something too, Roman? When I was talking about the third person in the office, the initial agreement was that person would work 3 days a week. It's not, I'd like to have them full-time, but the 3 days a week would definitely work. What she does is brings in a lot of money to the county.
That helps a little bit.
Well, and speaking about that, just out of curiosity, like, our office is 24/7. Someone who works in a different county office is a 40-hour week. Our office is 168 hours a week. So that's over 4 people just to staff our office 24/7. By taking any of us away, we already have one who's part admin. So we really, even though we have 6 people under that category, we really only have 5.5. But by taking someone away, that means we have no extra coverage on Friday nights, no extra coverage on Saturday nights. That is putting us to the bare minimum in dispatch. That is putting detention to the bare minimum, especially during their day shift, when they're so busy taking people here, taking people there, feeding breakfast, feeding lunch, all the different things, going to the doctors. When you're cutting one from either one of those departments, it's horrible. Not to mention what Tom's already said about a deputy, that would be horrible to the county as well. But that's just something to consider. We're 168 hours a week, not 40. And I don't know, have you considered, I mean, we are full-time, we're permanent, we are post-certified. I mean, doesn't the temporary part-time people usually go first? Just a question. Doesn't the temporary part-time people usually get laid off first before permanent, full-time, post-certified, educated people?
Marcia could answer that, I would think, the best.
Yes, that is actually how that, our policy reads. If a department, and I'm speaking from memory because I looked at this sometime during the past week, if it is determined that cuts should be made in a department, any employee who is part-time, first are temporary employees, and I believe that it's part-time employees after that.
In a department.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
if the sheriff's office doesn't have any part-time temporary employees, and you decide to make cuts in that department versus a department that does have those temporary part-time folks, then it's a department by department thing, the way the personnel policy reads.
So you understand that? It's the department, it's not, if there's a half-time person working over at the extension office, it would.
Doesn't preclude.
No, because it's by department, not by part-time, half-time. Now, within that department, it would go half-time, part-time. Like you just stated, there are none in your office.
I had a question for Jess. The shortfall we're experiencing right now is our shortfall in taxes that have not come in versus our full budget, everybody's spending their money in. Is it true, like, from July 1st or whatever till taxes start coming in November, that's where our short gap is right now? Or, you know, everybody's saying, well, the county's broke, blah, 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 but
So-
is it just a shortfall?
No, it's an overall.
It's an overall,
It's
okay.
overall. So, you know, the big, we don't have very much cash now. So in the general fund, I think we're actually up since our last time we met. We're at 149,000. We won't collect a whole bunch of revenue really until November when we collect the reals, the taxes. But we'll get other money will come into the general fund, but it probably won't be enough to cover everything through the end of November. But that's kind of the smaller picture, really. The bigger issue is just the overall balancing the budget, which is even bigger.
We're spending more money than's coming in.
Correct.
Every year. And so to rebuild our reserve, because I remember in the past, if the reserve got down to like 500,000, Kathy and Shirley, all those guys were screaming, and they were in here and saying, quit spending, quit spending. And that was panic situation of 500,000 in reserve. They like to keep $1 million in reserve, and that was for the shortfalls, for, you know, the emergencies or whatever. How can we ever rebuild those reserves when we're so broke? Will we be able to, maybe 10 years down the road, or?
It's a good question. I don't, not without personnel cuts.
Okay.
All right. I mean, absolutely not. If anything, you're looking at an additional mill levy.
Okay.
If the personnel cuts aren't significant enough.
With that being said, have you three been thinking outside the box here, trying to get other companies, other type of revenues to come into this county to, entertain that thought versus waiting for them to come to us?
Impossible, huh?
I mean, there's a lot of us who sit here and think about that all the time.
Yeah, well, we think about it too. In fact, and Kevin, another arm of his office is economic development, and he can probably explain some of the history and some of the problems. We have only 8% land that we can offer up to companies, and some of the, what are some of the ones that have been tried and failed, Kevin? that-
Most of them, the ones that were real significant, revolved around the airport. The first thing, when you get a call from a business from elsewhere, they want to know, do you have natural gas? That's the very first thing they ask for, an infrastructure concern. No, we don't have natural gas. The next question was, do you have three-phase power? In places, they would come look at the places and they weren't adequate. How come we don't have it? So we now have it at the airport. It's a potential. We're talking years down the road. I don't know if I'll live long enough to see it.
Okay, what about the county stepping up to the plate?
The county is stepping
And
up.
that he-
No, I'm talking about creating their own business.
Where they gotta get the money though?
No, I mean.
What kind of a
They
business?
make money.
We all have, loans, just like the county can too. I mean, why can't we step up?
We have
like
loans.
Spokane?
We have a
Let me
revolving
talk.
loan fund.
Let me talk.
Excuse me.
So, I mean, we're standing in here wondering how we can make money. Look at over in Spokane, look at, what's it, Silverwood and those sort of things. Why can't the county come up with some idea like that to bring tourism to this county? I mean, we need to step up to the plate and do something. We all borrow money to buy our own houses, and we're all in debt. The county can be too. I mean, we're all, the county is
I
all
don't-
the time anyway, but those are just ideas.
I guess I'd like to respond to a little bit of that, Boone. I don't know if you've been down to St. Regis lately, but we have tourism. We have tourism in the West End. We work on getting it everywhere here, but those businesses that are here have survived the past because they're family-run businesses and they're smart. And you just don't pull somebody in here and say, yeah, we got something for you. What do we got to offer them? We got all Forest Service land. I mean, I personally, I think one of the things that we can do, you said, are we thinking outside the box? We need to go with the Public Lands Council with, or committee, which Lori is on, and we need to go to the PILT and ask for an increase in the PILT funding because of the amount of federal land that we have in this county. If we can get more money out of that, where they're paying dollar for dollar what that land's worth, instead of a pittance, that would be a help.
Didn't we lose a bunch of money on the power line taxes that came through years back? They got a big
Well, they
tax break.
appeal it and they settle that.
No, we
yeah.
didn't give them a break, but.
No,
they-
we didn't, the federal government.
Oh.
Yeah.
And there's no way to fight any of that.
Well, it was fought for years. It was fought. You can ask Stacy. She was here when that was going on, but it was fought for years in court. And I mean, the county has no legal other than, yeah, that was our tax money. We have nothing to say in that.
So Kathy Burley had her hand up.
I was just gonna say to Mr. Boone's comment about bringing business in. Ken and I have been in business for 40 years in this county, off and on, and to a small degree, to a larger degree. We just had to RIF 90 people in November, which wasn't an easy thing to do. Half of our workforce had to be cut. We're very committed to the community. Kenny tried to retire and put in another manager. It didn't work. We came out of retirement, we came back, and he's trying to keep it going. It's a tough struggle right now with the Canadian lumber market, and it's about the only high-paying jobs we have in Mineral County right now. And we're doing everything we can to keep it alive. But he has tried many things, the post and pole, we've tried other avenues in the woods industry, and it's really tough here. It's really tough to do it. And I used to go to the chamber meetings when I had my little shop in town, and I'd say, well, what about this, and what about that, and let's try this, and I was kind of always shot down, well, that won't work, that won't work, that won't work, and I think the people were probably right, because the geographic position of St. Regis, they have a better shot at tourism and getting people to stop than we do. You tell people you're from Superior and they don't know where in the hell you're talking about, but you say St. Regis, oh yeah, we go through there and we go to the Flathead, we go to the Glacier, we know. But Superior is really a hard area to get, tourism into. You can focus on the West End and St. Regis, but the commissioners have a really tough job ahead of them. I have to commend Lori because she goes to all the meetings she possibly can to promote the county, to promote the lumber industry. Ken and I really appreciate that, and all the people at Tricon, what she's done. But it's a tough place they're in. when we laid off 90 people, Ken had a very difficult time, and his crew and his supervisors. It's something you don't think of lightly. We had to do it in November before the holidays. But what we found when we laid those people off, the rest of the crew pulled together as a team and really made it work. Really made us still be able to produce, keep the doors open. But the RIF isn't an easy thing, so I have to say I feel sorry for you guys. And I just wanted to say some of my ideas. If we have a high absenteeism, I understand, with some of the elected officials. And I've told you before, I told it in the last meeting, that to encourage them to stay here, to try and do more or be more of a team player. If you do cut some of their staff, that's going to encourage them to stay here and be in office, be in-house, and do the work, and not, so that should help pick up some of the slack if you do have to lay off somebody within one of those offices. Elected officials, I'm talking, somebody saying, well, maybe we don't need Jess, but I'll tell you, I have to support her, because I read the audit, I believe it was from 2014, and there were 14 pages of discrepancies of things being put in wrong funds. I mean, it just went on and on and on, all of the problems there are with the financial record keeping. So I have to say, Jess is needed here right now, even though it's costing us money. We need to have her here to help guide us through this tough time. I don't know what a person does if an elected official isn't doing their job, and we were made all sorts of promises during the campaign that they could do their job. So maybe we should look at a recall, and if we did that, some of our offices that we have now could be combined, like the treasurer and the clerk and recorder, and those people be so cross-trained that they could step in at any given time. When somebody goes to lunch, somebody has to go to the doctor, or whatever, they can pop back and forth between offices. And I'm not opposed to coming in and licking an envelope. I'm not opposed to coming in and help. Call me. My number's in the book. If somebody needs help in an office, I'll come. I'm dedicated to the community. But I don't want to say we can't do it. You just have to work smarter, and you have to work a little harder, and you have to be here to do the job. You can't do it when you're absent from this courthouse. So I just felt that cross-training's a really important thing. And if you do RIF, keep the most trained and experienced people in place. Retraining is costly, and it makes the office less efficient. It's kind of the same things I told you last time, but also have the employees kick in on a portion of their health insurance, have a sliding scale. Maybe the people that make the less amount of money in this courthouse, it's really tough if they only make $9 an hour and they have to come up with $120 a month or whatever. Maybe make it on a sliding scale if that's possible or legal, I don't know. And any unnecessary travel to conferences and stuff, unless it's an absolute, going to keep this county afloat, going to do everything for public safety, cut the travel. That's a very expensive thing. So that's about all I have to say, but I really think Jess is an asset right now. She knows what's going on in your finances.
Mr. Logie.
I wanted to say, I think, like Kevin Chamberlain's job is one where you don't want to cut in that department, I think, because what he does, he does so much good in the community for some forest restoration on small projects out in, sends people, the residents of the county, gives them the information they need, and saving Dave Brink on the weeds. They really help the people of the county, but lately what Kevin has been doing to try and promote the Forest Service to get things back in here is going to bring revenue into the county. He's been so active lately, and things are starting to happen, and I think that's one place I think you can see the benefit, because it'll come to all the residents of the county, and they'll be making a little bit better living because of his work. And I'm not picking on the other departments, but I think his job has some potential to make jobs in the county, and I think that's one place you have to look at. For Jessica's job, and I know, I looked at some of the audits before too, and the discrepancies last year, some of them are still around.
Well,
And-
from 13 to
Yeah.
14, Danley, there were 14 items they were supposed to correct, and 13, 8 of them are still
Right.
uncorrected, and 14,
And-
and we haven't had 15 audits.
Yeah,
And-
and
and
some of
that's-
the ones, because of when the audit was done, Kathy, the next year was already 3/4 over. So it's a little hard to fix something that you don't find out about until 3/4 through the fiscal year.
But it's still, and I know the progression of the audits, there are still some discrepancies. And I think, not everybody that gets an elected position is an expert on what they need to be. So I'm not blasting, except that I'm saying, that's maybe the help we need to try and come out of some of this. Maybe the $65 price tag, people are looking at it saying that's pretty high, but it was, no, I know, but I'm saying, people in the county are saying because they aren't making $65 an hour. And that's where people are coming, they're coming a little unglued when they see that. But if you go to Missoula and try and hire somebody, and it's not gonna happen.
125 an hour.
Yeah, so, I think we have to find out where the problems are to correct them, and I think that's what Jessica's been able to point out. So I think, that's something that's fairly important. I think, cross-training, like Kathy says, I think that's really important in the departments. And maybe that, you hate to have somebody reduced, but if that can cover it, and help a little bit, even one position might help. Sheriff's Office safety, none of us want to give up to safety, and I think we'll all want to agree on that probably.
Lock and load.
Yeah. Basically, that's my comments.
Well, yeah, and to echo, and it kind of goes to what Mike was asking, Boone was asking about our economy. Kevin, in economic development, we didn't have three-phase power, and he helped us get the grants and get it in for minimal cost. And Missoula Electric Co-op put three-phase power all the way to Jerry's meat shop now.
Yeah.
Jerry used to have inverters, and he was always they were burning out. He's excited now because he's gonna be able to maybe open up the other building to do smoke, make it be a smokehouse. I mean, these are small baby steps again with jobs, but he might be able to hire a few more people, which means a little bit more distribution. And Kevin also has helped us with our old economy, which was logging. I don't know if you guys know him, but he constantly helps us write letters to the Forest Service, and we've been getting more logging jobs. We've got, the Red Bull, we've got the Jam Cracker.
Murphy.
We've got, millions and millions of board feet. And if any of you guys see these log trucks, these guys are living, day to day, and they're happy and excited that at least they get to work another year because the Forest Service is finally responding, albeit very slowly. We don't have any factories knocking on our door to come and set up shop and, manufacture whatever. So these are the small things that we've been able to do, and in the future, maybe, I've always been talking to Kevin about maybe getting some kind of a commercial kitchen out here. Those have to be inspected and licensed by the state, but somebody who could just make relish or noodles. Ronan has a kitchen. You may have bought some of the noodles that are made in Ronan. Those are the things that we try to do, and we also have to find a businessman who wants to come in and start that project. And we had the old mill site out there, and how many people have gone through that don't seem to make a go of keeping that going. I mean, I guess the bark plant's still out there, but we are trying, Mr. Boone. It's just they're much smaller projects than I'd like to see, but and when Mr. Felstead had his garbage place up for sale, someone from the public asked me, why doesn't the county buy that? They could make money on garbage. But in speaking with other county commissioners, really, there's a lot more cost involved in running a garbage business than there is revenue. There's tires, there's fuel, there's wages, there's workman's comp, there's mechanical breakdowns, so I was discouraged by other county commissioners to even entertain that thought and let that stay private. But we are trying. We welcome any ideas, really, because if we don't have jobs here, then all of our families are going to have to move out. Marcia?
I've told Lori this, but I spent some time when I was out this week I was in a community that transitioned successfully from being a mining community, silver mining, to a tourism and service-based economy. And I spent a lot of time in the Chamber of Commerce there talking to the executive director, trying to get ideas from them as far as what they have done to help promote that change. I was actually supposed to meet with a couple of other people and ended up leaving early to come back. And so I hope that I will be able to do that, talk to those people and pick their brains and see what they may have as far as suggestions are concerned. It's a county that has very similar demographics to ours. They're 95% federal land. Their population is much smaller, I think around 700 or 800 full-time residents, but they're thriving. And I spoke briefly with Lori once I pull things together and have some ideas. I would like to come in and talk with you about that, because I think we need to, I really think we do need to be trying to think outside the box and trying to make our, make our own destiny. I mean,
What
Peggy?
about looking at resort tax or something like that to help with that? I've always thought.
St. Regis has it already, but.
Yeah, maybe you weren't at the meeting when
Oh.
somebody asked me that from your department before, but yeah, to be qualified as a resort, you have to convince the legislature that you are in fact a Whitefish, a West Yellowstone, or a St. Regis. And then you're allowed to assess that tax. And the fuel tax idea came out one time, but the fuel tax, correct me if I'm wrong, Marcia, it's earmarked only for incorporated cities that can use it for sidewalks and streets.
Yeah, I don't remember, gosh, that was like 5 years ago,
Yeah.
so I don't remember exactly.
I remember
but
that's how you.
my general
Mhm.
recollection was
The
that
county
was what the
commissioners
statute.
agree to put it on the ballot, but basically it's the incorporated cities that benefit from that. And it's earmarked only for streets and sidewalks. So we couldn't give it to public safety or the health department.
I was thinking to help support the infrastructure, because when I look at the gorge, or I look at all of the
Mhm.
fishermen that access the
Mhm.
Clark Fork, and I look at all of the hiking trails we have here, and I look at the emergency services that would have to be in place to support that.
Well,
If
yeah.
something happens.
The rafters are ideal. When I first came in, I tried to make that $6 park fee. Tried to get about 37 cents or carve a part of it out for Mineral County for impacts.
Yeah.
Not only the road, but like you say, when they flip a boat, search and rescue goes. When their car stereo was ripped off, the sheriff's office has to go. But the legislative writers of the law called me back and said they could not pass a state law that benefited only the county. That money would have been distributed to all 56 counties, and then
Oh, geez.
it made it too small to go
Yeah.
forward with that idea. Kevin?
I guess that's where I see an emphasis. To me, when I go on the governor's board or whatever over there, I'm on 3 of them. They're all, you hear from Billings, you hear from Kalispell, you hear from Missoula, and they whine about cracks in the sidewalk, and I tell them we're trying to get sidewalks, and we're just trying to get used to flush toilets. And they kind of get this weird look, but the governor's sitting on a $300 million surplus, and that's money that came out of this county and it came out of whoever. You look at our economy, and just by the comments, we really don't have much of one. If it wasn't for Tricon, the hospital, government services, we really wouldn't have anything to show for an economy. And I guess I'm extremely grateful to have Tricon because they are extremely innovative and they're tough. I mean, they make it work. Finding another one, impossible, they don't make them. But by the same token, given that we don't have much of an economy, given that what revenue we do see that is not locally generated comes off the freeway, I guess to me, we need to have the legislature look strongly at the notion of resort tax. If we're 82% federal land, 9% or 12%, depending on whose numbers you use, state land, that leaves 8% that's actually providing a tax base. What are we if we're not a tourist income? We sat right in this room in 1992, the Forest Service came in and said, get used to a tourism economy because logging's going away. Well, it hasn't showed up yet. Everything else is bypassed. There's
In
too
fact, the
many
Forest
other-
Service has dampened our opportunities for tourism. Back then, Chuck Wild said, expand on your snowmobiling, you got premium black diamond snowcat
Now
up
they
there,
just
doo-doo,
shut it off.
and now they shut that up. Continue.
Well, and so I
Yeah.
guess that needs to be rethought with regards to the resort tax or whatever it could be, because it does tend to provide revenue in areas. St. Regis is unincorporated, they defined an area, they can use it for other things. The resort board lent money to the St. Regis senior citizens and actually contributed money to St. Regis senior citizens to build the St. Regis Senior Citizen Center. They're the ones that built the community center in St. Regis. They have infrastructure, they can do things with that money. The money has to be spent within that area, and only the people in that area can vote on that. And so, it's a little bit different fund, but it works, and it provides St. Regis with things that the rest of the county wishes for. Well, I guess to me, there's areas within Mineral County that do need to be defined as resort, because we really don't have anything else. And for whatever reason, the law is constructed in a means that makes it West Yellowstone, Whitefish, exclusive areas. I guess to me, that kind of undoes the notion of a resort tax that benefits the impact of tourism on local community, and that's what the original law was meant to do, was to lessen the impact of tourism on local community. All of our guides, all of our river trips, majority of them, start somewhere else, they pack their lunch in Missoula, they ride out on their bus, they run the river, they get back on the bus and they leave. They don't stop here to spend any money. And so, I go over to Idaho, I bought something at a dealer over there, I was visiting with the guy that owns the thing, he says, yeah, Superior, we were looking at buying a house in Superior so we would have a place to stay in the winter when we came over snowmobiling. They shut down snowmobiling, 8 of us that were looking at buying 3 homes in Superior quit. You can't tell me the Forest Service's policies don't affect us here locally. I'm sorry, this is probably detracting from, but we talk about all these, we talk about all these things to build an economy in Mineral County. The people I talk to that are from elsewhere are amazed that anyone is capable of doing business here, just because it is an extremely tough place to do business. But we have advantages that we haven't been able to capitalize on yet in terms of freight, in terms of our proximity to Missoula, to Spokane, all that kinds of things.
Fiber optic cable?
Right, and all those kinds of things, but the fiber optic, I was looking at that, they said you needed a $12 million minimum investment to even get an off-ramp off of that thing.
Really?
Yeah, it's huge. So anyway, I apologize.
Kevin,
Yes, sir.
one question, and maybe Kathy can enlighten us on this too. The tax structure of Montana, is it friendly to businesses?
No, we have a little entity called Western Reclamation. Ken and I used to do all excavation, okay? When we had all of our equipment, which we weren't big, like Knife River or Old Castle, any of those guys, we were taxed on the average $12,000 a year just to have our excavators, our cats, our grader. That wasn't counting the trucks. We had 14 chip trucks. That was separate. This was just to have the rolling, the equipment. We've sold off a lot of stuff. This year I got by with almost 4,000, and I was like, whoa, I haven't written a check like that small in 10 years. So for people coming in, Montana is not a friendly state to come and do business. We get overlooked all the time because of our tax deal. And referring to tourism versus a real good manufacturing plant, tourism, we have friends that own the city limits brew pub in Wallace. Wallace is a mining town. They've had to struggle to come back. They've got little shops, they come and go. They work, the people that we are friends with work 7 days a week to keep it open. Come winter, they almost starve to death. So I don't know if we should put our emphasis on tourism, because that's not where the money's at. Low-paying jobs, no health insurance, they move in here, the kids do, they work to do the ski lift or do, rafting, and they're gone. They don't provide any tax-based money, poof. So if it was me doing it, I would be digging hard to attract somebody here that produced $15, $20 an hour jobs with benefits.
Yeah, the tourism isn't the bailout for the county or the state, because most of the jobs, I mean, it's good for the business owner.
Yeah.
Real good for the business owner, it can be, especially like St. Regis, they've been established a long time. But for the workers, it's basically minimum wage, and so a lot of times it costs the rest of us because of the services we end up providing for those employees. So it's not really the bailout in the long term, and I know Mako had a figure, and this has been like 8 years ago, that to be a benefit to the county, you've got a part of society, you need to make about $10.50 an hour to be putting back in. And that's been about 8 years ago, and I'm sure that figure is quite a bit higher. So you have to think about the tourist it's a good thing and it pulls people around, but you've got to have something else, and that's the job for the kids. You know, put them in the tourist, put the kids in those kind of jobs, you know, but we need something else to come in that's gonna provide a resource type job or internet type, home internet stuff.
Well, I see big companies looking at beautiful little places like this to do their internet business, and a lot of companies are strictly going internet, so I like the idea that fiber optics and maybe using that to attract larger companies and saying, this is your backyard.
And it's a great place to live.
Yeah, and then
We have
maybe
that.
transfer their companies over here, since a lot of their work is done via the internet.
The majority of those that look big wind up in Missoula.
Yeah, I
Because
know.
Missoula to them is rural.
You cannot get a professional
It is.
woman to hardly move here, let me tell you. Women don't like to move here. We try to hire accountants and other professional people in our office. They come, they visit, they look, and the wife says, I'm not living here, there's nothing to do. Poof, they're gone. We have to beg to get professional people here because
There was a guy looking to come here out of Colorado Springs and build yurts. He has a really good business, he was looking at moving it. They stood in St. Regis, which, anyway, he said, boy, I love this place, and his wife stood right in the door of the van with her 4 kids and says, I don't. I mean, it's okay, discussion over, you know, and that's not the first time that's happened, so.
for 30 years, we've been going through that.
I guess to me, to be able to work with businesses that have decided to be here or that are here, and expand and retain those businesses is where I have tried to focus. That's why I worked with Superior Meats to try and get them the infrastructure they need. They've added 6 more positions out there since that power hit. He's busting at the seams. We're gonna go after another community development block grant to extend him both ways, plus build his other facility. And we're looking at probably 11 to 15 more just there. That's the places we can actually have some impact. 4 jobs in Mineral County changes us 0.1% on the unemployment rate. And right now, we're still at the highest in the state. Do you think we can get any help from the state?
But on the other hand, we can't get laborers at the mill because they don't want to work hard, and there's jobs out there all the time, but you have a certain demographic of people that don't want to work hard.
Mr. Mike Curtin.
Yeah, Ms. Connolly mentioned a figure of 400,000. What exactly are you trying to recoup here with the layoffs and whatever? And in that respect, the health department there, she went through her budget and came up with almost $20,000 savings. The extension office, he came up with 4,000. Has the other departments been asked to do this? And does it come out to a figure that's going to help? Is the 400,000, is that accurate number of what you have?
That's our
to
target.
recover?
That's our target. That's like Jessica stated earlier, that's where we need to kind of be to neutralize, just to balance.
Right.
That's just to balance. As of today, on our budget, that's what we would need to balance the general fund and public safety.
And have all the other
Okay,
departments been asked to do
Yeah, you bet.
Well,
with
I
the
would
extension
think,
in the health
given the
department?
invitation to come to this meeting, I would think that that would kind of, suggest that they could bring other suggestions, so they should have been looking at it.
And Mike, past history, this isn't the first time that we've sat here and tried to deal with budget cuts. And nothing personal with the sheriff's office, but that's always the hot topic. Always is, always has been.
Because
Hasn't
we've
it?
got the highest budget.
Because you got the highest budget.
It's always gonna be that way.
Yeah, and I agree with you. But that's always where we end up. we have brought departments in here year after year after year, and you can ask Stacy, you can ask Marcia, Ronnie, and they have always contributed. And I'm sure that if there's anything left for them to contribute, they will contribute again. So, yeah.
This isn't new. It's something that, like you said, every year, well before I was elected, it's come. I mean, it happens every year. We budgeted a little bit differently around the sheriff's office to try to make it a little more realistic. Looking, the last 3 years, Ronnie, you guys have actually ended your fiscal year on a positive, which out of the 17 years I've been here, those are like pretty much the first 3 times I've ever seen it. People are trying. I mean, it's nothing new. I don't.
And to give an example of that, I mean, when we first came in last year with our first proposal, it was kind of agreed between all of us that we needed to cut more. We ended up cutting, I think, about $113,000 before we finally came to our final budget proposal for this past fiscal year. So yeah, I mean, I think everybody does that. You have to.
Yeah, but a lot of them come in with their preliminary budgets. It's their wish list. I mean,
Exactly.
It's exaggerated immensely. And so, well, yeah, we cut 100-some thousand, but it was
Well,
grossly overinflated
and it's
in the
based
first
on
place,
what we
so-
did the year before. So
I mean, it sounds like, yeah, boy, we really cut a lot, but I mean, a lot of them were really overinflated. So I'm not saying in our defense, but since I've been here, we have tried to give every department everything that they have asked for in order to run their departments and their offices efficiently to the best that they can. And it's gotten us to this point of now maybe we shouldn't have done that. And so now we're having to make these drastic, cuts, and it's not fun. I mean, now we're the ones that's having to make these hard decisions. And I'm hoping that the department heads, we've got department head meetings next week with their budgets, that we can sit down with the department heads and find out where can we do some more cuts to try to get within. I mean, yes, we are going to have to do reduction in force. We have to. But then we also, that's not going to make up the whole $400,000.
No.
Those reductions in force is not going to come up with the $400,000. We still have to find more ways, more places to come up with money. And still keep the services, or at least try and keep things going the way we are.
Jess mentioned that maybe put out to the other departments that weren't listed on the original memo or whatever, that maybe they should think about attending it. Is it 3? Anyway, the next meeting, that maybe their departments could be looked at. And I'm not picking on any one thing or the other, and then Marcia said, it seems to be centered around the essential services. But like, you've got the library, and again, I'm not saying it's not a necessary or good service by any means. But I know, they get quite a few mills.
But we're looking just at the general fund. I mean, we're not looking at
Right.
everything else. This is just within the general
But
fund.
some of the
we're
mills
looking
that
at.
go to them, though, are mills that could go to the general fund. The reason the general fund's only stuck at that 20 mills is because in 2009, they didn't, do I understand right? They didn't levy the year before because, they gave a tax break, basically. They said, okay, we've got plenty of money. We don't want to tax if we don't have to, so they didn't levy. Then 2009, legislature put in a mill levy freeze. So then all of a sudden,
Could put it back on.
you know, you can't all of a sudden put in the mills that you do need because you were frozen at the levy that you did the year before, which was 0 or next to it or something. So then, of course, they had to pass that 20 mills. Well, the 20 mills was never anywhere near enough to run just the general fund. I mean, this isn't something new. It's not something I did alone, contrary to some people's belief. It's a group effort, and it's something that's been coming down the pipeline for several years. Some of those mills that we have to give to these other, they could come over and go into the general fund. I'm not saying get rid of the library, but that's not what I mean. I just mean it, you know. You know, and there was something at one of the budget meetings I went to with Mako at one point. They said that that library districts, they actually, because you know how the library board actually makes, you tell them how much money you're going to give them. The library board is the one in charge of
Spending it.
And where they allocate. They also have some other options as far as
Revenue sources?
but I can't remember. That was several years ago, probably 6 years ago. So I don't remember. But it seems like because they're they can be their own entity. They don't necessarily have to be. And granted, that's a drop in the bucket compared to the big problem. But it's another one of those little things. I know. I mean, the ambulance is basically volunteer service.
It's voted.
But it's 2 mills. That's not
Yeah,
huge.
Yeah,
But
you can't change it.
no, that's not where I was going.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
But you're okay. I know why you thought that. But like the fair board, and I know again, it's not a huge amount of money, but they pay a secretary and they pay a groundskeeper year round. And I'm not certainly picking on any of them either. I just maybe see if they can put some of that back to volunteer services, like you know. I don't know. I just, those are little options that.
You know, you look around.
It's a drop in the bucket.
You look around the country, this is happening to rural counties everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
There's actually a county in Oregon, I get a little blurb on the internet, that has recommended people not to move there because they cannot supply them with the law enforcement that they need.
I remember
I would hope that
talking
it
about
doesn't
that.
come to that here, but could you imagine sending that out? No, no, don't.
And that's like a magnet,
Yeah.
though. That's
Well, yeah, what do you suppose that brings in, yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's, kind of like dispatch going on the radio and saying, we don't have anybody to help you right now. You know, I mean, that's.
It's an advertisement.
Yeah.
You're gonna, you know. I just, it's little things, and it's a drop in the bucket. It's like the $800 post office box. But it's little things that, I mean, it all adds up, and that's where to me, that's where the spiral started, was, you know, when they froze those levies and we hadn't levied the year before. That was not a good thing. So.
Any other questions, comments from anybody? Ms. Burley?
My final one is you're going to just have to get lean and mean. Everybody's going to have to work a little harder. I've worked in the schools and I've worked in other government offices. There's always a little mindset there that everybody's overworked. You've got to go out in the real world and really see what overworked is. Ask Lori, she worked like a devil for us. Our people in our office are so pared down. Those gals really work. I've been in that treasurer's office for the last 10 years, sometimes 3 and 4 times a week, putting license, GVW, licensing pickups, SM plates for graders. And I've seen people sitting there ordering their Christmas presents on the internet. I have seen the minute I walk in the door, the cell phones go click, 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 click down on the desk. Nobody should be picking up a cell phone during work unless it's on their lunch or their smoke break or whatever. People are just going to have to work harder, meaner and leaner, and get her done.
Well, I'm sure that throughout the rest of the day here, while we have to digest all this, we might be making more visits or phone calls to people to run second and third ideas by, but I guess ultimately at 3 o'clock's our doomsday decision hour, so thanks for all the input. And I'm glad Mr. Logie was here, because you can go to the legislature hopefully and maybe bring some fresh
Not sure I'd want to be you either.
revenue ideas back to our county.
Well, it'd be interesting to see what the legislature had to say about making Montana tax friendly, because, you know, when Post Falls got the Cabela's, everybody over here said, why didn't we get that? Why didn't Missoula, that was before Missoula had that little one, why didn't, you know?
I know
well,
they did help a little bit on reducing some of the private property.
Yep,
Some, I mean, it was a step,
yep,
but a small step for big companies.
yep.
Right.
But we pay in property taxes at Tricon, we can't even pay them every year, we're always in arrears. I'm not gonna, make any bones about it, it is really, really high, it makes it difficult. It and the power bill are the two
Power's
highest
outrageous.
things we've got, and
Equipment tax.
our equipment.
And that's what I meant, they made a little break there, but it's only for the, basically
That
for
hurt
the,
us.
for the farmer, because the big
Yeah.
contractor, it was a drop in the bucket.
It didn't affect us hardly at all.
Well, my husband has his own business. I mean, it's him and one part-time employee, but he paid over 41% of his wage went to self-employment tax. I mean, it's hard for a small business to make it.
In Montana.
It really is. I mean, it is. And he's working all the time just to try to, put tires on his grader. Those aren't cheap.
No.
I'd like to just give you some of my insight. There's not necessarily any answers, but just some insight that maybe we can catch it in the future if it gets worse. I'd like to start out with Peggy had said something earlier, and I want to bounce off of what she said. You mentioned about roughly about 6 years ago or so, you were mentally dating back to when we started having some of the problems and issues, and from me listening to the people in the community of people who had been here longer than me, they said that basically a lot of this stuff started 30 to 40 years ago, and it's just been slow mission creep of adding a little bit here and a little bit there. Oh, because we can, we should, and we want to be. I say we in the government of Mineral County. We want to be doing things positively and assertively for the public here to make things better. And then later on, Stacy said something about, the last 6 years, again, is when it seemed to be coming to a forefront. But I just want to go back to the idea that it's not just 6 years, it's been a slow mission creep, and then when we get used to that, we just keep on never changing it. We just keep on adding more and more and more. I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just saying that it is. And so we may need to, and you're doing that now, wean ourselves off of doing all the little things that make things so much nicer for being here. We have to be able to cut back and say, okay, we are in a more austere time now, and so I empathize with the commissioners, and I empathize with each of the departments here that have people in their constituency that they have to represent and feel that they want to bring out the best that they can for Mineral County. And so to label it back just to the last couple of years, I don't think that's completely fair. If you look at the big picture started a long time ago. And then that process just continued on, just with mission creep to the point that it started skyrocketing a few years ago. And what you can do about it, I don't know. That's what you're doing now, is trying to do something about it. One of the things I thought about was having shared services. We talk about shared services within the county itself, but what about inter-county on some positions that can have inter-county help? And I don't know what positions would be able to be doing that. I know that, for instance, like if Dale is out, he can get help from Sanders or somebody else to fill in with the JP slot. You know, she can have somebody come in and substitute for her for something that may be a conflict of interest that she should not be doing. Or, you know, and the road crew, I wouldn't be surprised if someplace up there on the cutoff that they would help out the adjacent county there if something was to go bad. We all are in this together. It's not just a little microcosm where we're at. And if we approach things positively, maybe there's something that we can do that would just be a little bit here and a little bit there, that we have shared responsibility. We have memorandums of understanding all the time. You know, maybe we can incorporate some more of that to make our part flow a little bit better and their part flow a little bit better. We don't have to necessarily have to keep it all just within Mineral County. And I'm just saying that's another option to look at. You know, when it's hard to say what are essential services because we've brought on all these non-essential services as nice to do things. And so maybe we need to cut back on some of the not essential services and even temporarily till we get a good footing going in the future and then bring them back. That might be an option for us to do, not necessarily stop it altogether, but keep it in a maintenance mode at a lesser effectiveness that we're supporting it. The last thing was, and listening to the discussion over the last week or two and hearing the different departments talk about different things, one of the things that came out that impressed me was the idea, well, we have these half-time or part-time equivalents, and they cost us X amount of dollars because we're not paying for their insurance, we're not doing other things that are happening there. But then somebody brought in the idea that if we made them and combined them into one full-time equivalent with one person, we'd be saving more money, even if we had to pay for their health benefits. And the health benefits to me was a big ticket item on our Cadillac version, as Dwayne was saying. And so maybe even if we kept the Cadillac version and we reduced the number of part-timers to combine them into a full-time, would that benefit us? And then maybe reduce the health benefits too. So there's you know, that has not been brought out, that part of it has not been brought out here in today's meeting. And so I just venture that as a possibility of where we have, you know, a couple of part-timers positions, combine them into a full-time maybe, and do allow them to have health benefits, because it still was, you know, $3,000 or $4,000 cheaper a year to even with health benefits to have that be on there, unless I misunderstood what I had picked up all the conversations that were going on. And the last thing is, you guys got a tough job, and I'm glad it's yours.
You can have it, Dennis, I'll give it back to you.
Okay, well, anything else? It's 11:33, and next is public comment. Yes, sir.
Public comment?
Or you can talk on this subject right here.
I guess I'm talking on the subject, but if you have some public comment, I can make
No,
it.
if it's on the subject, go ahead.
My name is Glenn Welch. I'm the Chief Juvenile Probation Officer for this district, and when I heard that this was going on, I thought that there's some things that have been going on in Mineral County that I've been really proud of in the past. As you all know, I think that I recognize me that I've been involved with this detention stuff, with juvenile detention since Well, Charlie Rock was on the committee with me, so that tells you something, so. And when this whole thing came up, there's some things that I've been really proud of what's happening in Mineral County with some alternatives to secure detention. And so I'd like to speak to you a little bit about a couple programs that you have that I want you to think about long and hard. And one is your pretrial program. Your pretrial program is essential, and I know we look at pretrial programs, these programs as expenses. I'd like you to take another look at it as what does it save us. The pretrial programs give judges an alternative to secure detention. And secure detention, as you all know, is expensive. It's really expensive. And not only is it expensive for the counties, but it's expensive for the offenders and expensive for the communities, because if people go into secure detention, they're not working, they're not paying taxes, they're not doing the things that we want them to do while they're in secure detention. Plus, it's costing us money in secure detention. Pretrial gives judges alternatives so they don't have to put kids in jail, but still have people supervised and supervised closely to, number one, protect the citizenry. So I think it's an essential program. It's been an innovative program. It's been a program I've been really proud of, because I've been able to go to speak to other people in other states and say, hey, I've got a little county that have done this. They've taken a look in the future. They've had the foresight to do some things to save themselves some money, and it's been really, in my mind, successful. And so we look at these things, I look at these things and what is the savings to us? Yeah, we got to spend some things to get some things. I think it's really important we take a look at that. On one hand, and the other thing is our misdemeanor probation program that we have up here. Misdemeanor probation doesn't seem like a big deal unless you start talking about some of the things that happen with judges. We go to misdemeanor, judges almost always assess fines, fees, those kinds of things that are a revenue stream. Misdemeanor probation follows up with those folks, make sure those fines and fees are paid, revenue stream. We don't have misdemeanor probation. There's really not a whole bunch of incentive for the offender to pay. So if the offender doesn't pay, then what happens? Then it comes to the judge's attention. Geez, if this guy's not paying, what do we do with it from there? So they issue a warrant. So now our guys go out, pick this person up, put them in detention. So now we're paying out secure detention costs. And one of the things I want to talk to you a little bit about is knee-jerk reactions. Flathead County had a knee-jerk reaction here recently where they said, oh, our adult population is too much and we can't do this, and so let's close the juvenile detention portion of our facility and we'll figure it out. That was 7 months ago. Flathead County's paid Missoula County over $300,000 in juvenile detention costs, just in detention costs. That doesn't count manpower, bringing them back and forth. That doesn't count time, all that kind of stuff that takes place when we have a knee-jerk reaction. You guys here have done some things here that have been really innovative and really neat. I'd really ask you to take a long look at that when these programs come up, and I'm not sure that they'll come up. That's kind of why I'm here. So take a long look at that stuff and look at the savings that you have in your communities rather than the expenses of the programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Kevin, you just came in. Are you for public comment or on this topic?
Public comment.
Oh, okay. That's next, so stay tuned. Anybody else want to say anything before we close the meeting on this topic at hand? Yes?
I've got a new topic.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, well then, being none, thank you all for coming, and thanks for your input and your comments, and we'll take them under advisement, and thanks again. You gotta get somewhere? We've got a couple people for public comment. Do you wanna go first?
Sure, that's
Okay.
great.
Okay.
I know that there's been talk about this South Side Road.
Oh, yeah.
And I talked with the county, with
T-Bone,
and he said that they're willing to come up with $25,000 for asphalt and oil.
And the
city said they would match it. So I think it's a good time to bring the subject
Yeah.
up again with our management.
would you guys be willing to donate the manpower? And
Well, that's what you guys have to ask.
Right, okay.
That's way above me.
Yeah.
But we do have the equipment here right now if we're doing Mullen Road.
Right. So what do you need from us then? A quick phone call or a letter? or-
Yeah, I would say at least a phone call to Steve Felix and Ed Taves, and maybe even higher than that if,
Yeah.
We need to.
yeah, I mean, this is the
Yeah,
closest.
In the past, they couldn't spend money to buy the mix for the job because the auditors would come in and say, well, that's not your road.
Mhm.
So probably with the equipment is what Kevin's getting at to delay
Yeah,
it.
if we all bought the mix, then all you'd have to do is provide the rollers and the guides and
The push paver and
the. Mhm.
And it wouldn't hurt after what happened out on Mullen East. You run it by Felix, but also put Thule in it too.
yeah, and I've got that information. if you
Okay.
want.
Yeah, I talked to Tom Wheeler on Sunday, and he was saying also that, you know, he's kind of mentioned it too, but he said we need to
Make
go above these guys
See?
because, you know, they really want to do it, but it's the higher ups
Yeah.
that need the prodding to
What
get it
happened on
done.
Mullen East?
Well, Mullen East, I'd been mentioning guardrail, and Kevin has been mentioning guardrail on Mullen East, you know, since at least 2008. Well, it turns out Monty Turner asked me about it,
And got some attention.
and I gave him information, but I also emailed, since I couldn't do it when I was working, but since I was off, I emailed the director with ideas, and Monty too. Well, that's the first the director had ever heard about a need out
Oh,
there.
really?
Because all the other years it had stopped in
Stopped.
Missoula.
Yeah, and those old guardrails are like from 1958
Oh,
or
yeah.
something.
There's no safety factor.
So it's only getting to a certain level, but it's not getting to the higher up level, and that's where we
Yeah,
need to
and
get
to
to
me,
the
it's just
higher up
common
level.
sense that
Yep.
if the county and the city is willing to chip in, that, I mean, we use the road the most.
It saves,
Mhm.
it saves on the state trucks.
Yeah, from the shop to the
Yeah.
stop sign.
And it saves,
Plus it saves wear and tear on
saves
our
cleaning up
equipment.
the trucks.
Yeah.
So, any recommendation on verbiage or language in this letter? Basically,
I
the,
think
the
we
the
just
cost
need to call
of.
them. I think,
So yeah, call them and let them know that, hey, we've got $50,000 for material, for
Mhm.
asphalt and oil.
Could we co-op it or something?
Yeah.
Co-op it with labor, and they would pick up the, it's gonna be
The
hot
equip-
mix
the
out of Missoula?
Yeah, it'd be Knife
yeah,
River.
the equipment's here right now.
Yeah, they just have to travel and come back with it and lay it out.
Well, that's what we do, is we get trucks from all
Okay.
over to do it.
All right.
And it's about a mile, and so I figured at 200 feet of load, is what we've been getting, or 200 to 220. So at a mile, that's 5,280 feet. I figured it out, it was gonna be like $29,000 in mix.
How far does it take it out, Kevin?
It would be out to the shop, where you turn to the shop.
Just at the shop.
Yeah. Because you go
That's
beyond there and the road's good.
Yeah, we live just beyond there, and I know every time I go, I say, the state's the one tearing this road up, you know, they should be doing
And
something.
that's always been the,
And I know T-Bone about 3 or 4 or 5 years ago took out, there was quite a bit of dirt
Yeah.
right against the fence. He
Yeah.
cleaned that out.
He did
and
the
so it's
blade
all set
patch
up.
out there too.
Yeah, and it's all
Right.
set up to be a lot better.
And I do have somebody doing some digging on where the right of way is.
Oh, and actually, about the first 900
It's 1,000
feet,
feet.
1,000 feet is on
We
the
don't,
state
we
right
don't,
away.
we don't know for sure yet, that's what I'm,
Yeah, but
getting-
they put the curb in on it.
I know,
State did.
and trying to get the certified survey of that right now,
Should be
today.
on that
so
map
would
in
we
the
need
days.
that before we could proceed?
What's that?
Would we
No,
need that
no,
certified
No, that's just
survey?
that they saying some of it may be on right of way itself.
On state,
State
the
right
first
of way.
1,000 feet of it.
Mm.
That
they
would be a
would
good
never
way
run
to
up to
It's
combine.
either that or it's all railroad right away.
Supposedly it was city when, because of the old highway, when the freeway went in, the city limits went out to the sewer lagoon.
The city gets the road tax, the gas tax money on it.
And my ticket money too.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
all I got.
All right.
So call or email today.
Sure, well, I know Steve won't be back till Monday,
Oh.
Oh,
but, we're gonna be doing some more out on Mullen Road, late next week.
okay.
So the equipment's gonna be here for a while.
All right, well, thanks.
Yep.
Thanks for the for the inside info.
Yeah, no problem.
Get back to work.
Well, I want to fix it, just as much as everybody else.
All right, thanks, Kevin.
Got a full to get out of here.
Yeah. Mrs. Carroll?
Yes, I think everybody knows about Missoula bringing in a refugee resettlement program with a group called Soft Landing. And to date, there's 4 counties where their commissioners have sent a letter, Flathead, Ravalli, Sanders, and Lake County, saying they don't want them in their area. I understand you guys wrote a letter, but it was pulled.
Oh, no, we haven't yet composed. We were gonna have a meeting on it, and the meeting was pulled because,
Oh, okay.
yeah, but, I think we've all had time
And it
to.
does make a difference if these letters are sent,
Mm-hmm,
because everything from what I understand, like Soft Landing, when they
Mhm.
bring them in to Missoula, they can send them within 100 miles outside of Missoula. Well, when they get ready to place these refugees, they really don't like placing them in areas where they're not wanted or they can't really afford them.
mm-hmm.
And they try to find an area where they will be more welcome.
Well, I think we found a way that we can probably write a letter like that intelligently. Basically, a lot of the argument back out of Missoula is, oh, well, we've been a city of migration and immigrants before, and they used the example of the Hmong people and how well it all worked out. When I look back historically, and where I'm agreeing with you on this, is the fact that we're a nation of immigrants. However, we all kind of had a common thread in the fact that the Poles, the Irish, the French, everybody shared something that we all share in this country, not only background religiously, but values in terms of how we treat each other. And the Hmong people aren't Christian, but they're Buddhist, which that's a peaceful and meditative religion. So, but what we have happening now, and I think Germany's seen it, and some of the European countries where they have the Muslim people, and not all of them, but a large faction of them, they aren't used to the way our women dress. They aren't used to how we operate. Like, I think that there was somebody in a migrant camp, and they were walking by a park, and some German girls were dressed like German girls are dressed, suntanning or what have you, and they take that as an invitation for sex.
Right.
I'm concerned how we might be able to or not be able to assimilate people when they're just so vastly on the opposite spectrum as we are. Mr. Logie.
Yeah, and the other thing to back up what you may put, it's basically a letter to just say they're not welcome in Monroe County. And right now, in light of what's going on, of this last meeting, it's the economic impact that it puts on. Because they're supported for the first 30 days, or first 3 months, I should say.
In the health issues.
And then after that, then you have, the burden all becomes on the county, and our county can't take any of that. And I think that's, you know, you can touch on it without sounding like
Racist.
Right, bigoted, yeah.
And I think before, didn't you have a little problem, Marcia didn't want a letter that.
Oh, and then I didn't know how we'd word it, but I have since, I think we all come to the idea of how we can word it without it sounding like we're judging them
Well,
for
so you aren't
who
gonna
they
get in a
are.
lawsuit, but I think you can say what needs to be said and get the job done.
Yeah, and they need to be vetted.
That's right.
You guys are married,
We
you
can't-
fight who goes
We
first.
probably have different comments.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
okay.
can't, we can't afford to let terrorists into this county or into this country for that matter.
And
You
the
know,
Attorney General
if-
has stated that, and I think that's another reinforcement into this, is the
Well, it should
security.
be the number one. I mean,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
it
we
is.
are a country
It is
of
the number
immigrants,
one
yeah.
concern of everyone,
Yeah.
so.
Well, you now have, it's too bad Peggy's not here. You now have cases of active TB in the refugees. And there's now one of the refugee camps, for lack of a better word, in one of the cities, that has a huge outbreak of measles. And the contagion factor of both of those diseases, not to mention a lot of other diseases that we now take care of in our own population, is not a healthy thing to do for the county. Just from a health standpoint, it's not a healthy thing to do for the county. Economically, we can't afford it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We cannot provide them public housing and all the food stamps, even though that doesn't come out of our budget. But all of this,
Still
all
on
of,
taxes.
it's all taxes, but all of the things that you have to provide to bring someone here who is going to sit here and do nothing in return. We've got an article Bruce has that he pulled off of the net, talking about the employment. And this is in Europe, where they've been going on for some time. Well, Bruce has got the numbers, over 1 million in Germany, I think, 54 people, 54, no zero on the end, have jobs after 3 years. Now, that means the rest of them are still living on welfare, and that's out of your
And
pocket.
they're allowed welfare for 5 years.
60
months.
So I think,
And health.
I think what you need to do is try and proceed. If you need to have a public meeting on it, or just write up the letter, but, you know, this is something that, there's some urgency to it.
Yeah.
Because the Missoula office will be opening soon.
Yes.
I think one of the, go ahead.
Oh, I think the office is open now, isn't it? I believe it is.
It is officially open, I think, 1 August or something like that. But we really need the letter now, because we're not talking about 100, and we're not just talking about Syrians. If you want to see absolute chaos, go to a place like Minneapolis or St. Paul that has brought in 100,000 Somalis. By race, they have an IQ average of someplace in the neighborhood of 65 or 70. Unemployable. That's exactly what Europe has found out. That what Susan was quoting, I've given you the article from the German newspaper. The top 30 companies in Germany employ 4 million people. They have 1 million new immigrants from these areas in the last year. Of that 1 million group, 54 were hired, 50 into the post office system, 4 into actual companies that must make a profit. The crime rate has gone up dramatically. We just had a bunch of our very distant cousins come over from Denmark. They've destroyed their country. So we please get a letter out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'd like to say, add one more to the same topic, is that, you know, for a person to become a citizen, they have to swear allegiance to the United States. And that's 100% opposite of what their religion allows them to do. And so therefore, they are not required to take America first. And they can blow off anything and everything that our rules, our government says, because they are operating under Sharia Sharia law, and that is not becoming an American. And like you said, for the assimilation that you mentioned about the other places where they come from, and I think that if they are not willing to become an American, and then they need to be booted out. And that means, none of this 5-year waiting period to let them cause havoc, not have some other aspect of it where they raise 1 or 2 generations down the line, indoctrinating all their offspring so that they can have another Florida scenario where somebody who's the son of some religious guy from wherever he was from, Afghanistan or something like that. The point is that he was indoctrinated in his family from birth, to be of the Muslim mindset, and therefore hold all those values that are dear to us as dirt, and that needs to be stopped for bringing them into our area and continuing to prosper that downfall of the United States. They need to be kicked out, and it starts here. It starts locally. So we need to stop.
Measles outbreak, we're screwed.
Okay. Any other public comment? Mrs. Burley, does your friend have any public comment?
Oh, I so we can't afford them. If
Okay.
we think our resources are taxed now,
Yeah.
you know, we just, we can't do
In
it.
more than one way, we can't afford it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Cat Thompson.
Kat. I don't know why I would keep wanting to call you Judy Thompson, but I do.
That's Laura's wife.
Yeah.
Hey, good luck this afternoon.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.
All right.
Just some year-end type of maintenance things. For budget amendments, I'm gonna postpone it a little while.
Okay, you're doing the budget amendment?
The budget amendment I wanna postpone a little bit. There's still some accounts payables that will need to be added, and I just don't wanna have to do it twice. So I'll be back in a couple weeks to do budget amendments. But do you have this form, you guys?
In our little thingy.
Yeah.
Right there. Should be right. No, yep, open that thing back up, Roman. Nope.
Oh, well,
It's right underneath this memo on the right-hand side. Roman, in this little pocket when you open it.
Oh.
I don't have one. I have my memo.
I've got
Then you
mine.
must have lost yours somewhere.
we can share.
Yeah.
I'll believe you guys.
So, on the top, the transfer part, there's 3 funds that have negative cash that aren't grant related. And so we need to decide if we want to fix that negative cash for these individuals. And I'm kind of recommending that we do, because most of it was due to error anyway, and I can explain. So weed, they ended the year with negative $2,245. That's primarily because one revenue source was double booked for $14,000 and it wasn't caught until later. And so, he's well into, spending, and I have to call him and say, well, I'm gonna take away $14,000. And so, I don't know, so I'm just thinking, well, we could just transfer that money from Pilt and clear up that negative, and he could start the year fresh. For the fair,
But the transfer's 2,000, not 14,000?
correct, the transfer is $2,245.
Because that's what he ended up with.
Yes.
And what fund is that?
That is from, that's weed, 2140.
What other 2 funds?
Fair, extension service.
Okay.
So, anyway, but we can not do it and start him with negative cash, and then just really have to tighten up that budget, right, to get him out of that negative cash by the end of the year. So you guys can think about it, we'll go down the list. Fair, so they have negative cash of $5,955, and I don't know what we want to do here. They, say that it's just because they didn't get a budget to actual report forever, and they had no idea, and they thought they were within their budget. So I don't know what we want to do there. Again, we could just transfer and start them fresh and give them a good budget and then hold them accountable. When we feel confident we've done everything that we should, it's easier, I think, to hold people accountable, in the end. And then the last one is extension service, and they're $1,648 short or negative cash. And so I was talking to Kevin about this, and so I was looking at his budget, and he started the year, I think they started the year with $7,000, and he was well within his expenditure budget. But if you look at his budget, for revenue, they budgeted 50,000, and for expenses, they budgeted 60. So he was well within his budget, but it wasn't balanced, and it left him with negative cash. So we have to decide on that, what we want to do. And then the next section down is just to close out some old funds. We have DUI court surcharge, and has a cash balance of $111.64, and that would just be transferred to the general fund. There's K-9. It has a balance of $388.37. That would be transferred to public safety. And then there's family planning with a balance of $283, and we could transfer that to the general fund. Those are easy, and I just need a commissioner approval to close out funds. And then the last one, it's another fund we need to close out. It's mental health. And really, I don't know, there's a claim that comes in every year into mental health. For how much, Charlie? Like $4,000?
$4,000.
For $4,000, we don't levy, we don't put any money into mental health. It must have a cash balance. But anyway, so if you look at this invoice, it pretty much says it's from the Department of Health and Human Services, but it's a donation in a sense. Anyway, we gave them $4,000, and there wasn't enough money to do that. I did have Charlie look into it, but we were just trying to see, is this something that's mandatory? Do we have to do this?
I don't think it is mandatory.
I don't know, did you ever?
Never did make
Actually
contact
talked.
with that gal, because the only one that I can talk to is like the head, like the bureau chief. And in her email, she said that she couldn't even, or in her voicemail, she said she couldn't even find the statement that I was referring to. So she hasn't called me back, and
So
it's
very weird.
I guess my question is, we don't even receive any services from them now, do we?
no,
Everything that is in mental health is done through partners over at the clinic, correct?
right.
So why would we want to?
I don't want to do it anymore.
You're saying it was done already?
It was
That
already
much?
done. Yeah, it was.
So
It was
who did
signed
it?
by Cindy Grimm. So it was a while ago. Cindy Grimm signed the invoice.
Mhm.
Well, I know they send that bill every year.
So I don't.
Used to.
I don't
But that
think
was
we
when
have to
were
pay
getting
it.
Services, I mean.
Right. So I don't think we have to pay it, but in the meantime, we do have to.
I think it's a contribution is what.
That's what.
Don't we do a similar scenario for the aging?
I think so, yes.
I'll have to look at because I do remember seeing something in some paperwork here the other day. I'll look into that, but we don't give them anything like that.
Right.
So that parentheses is a negative amount, that's why it's transferred from PILT?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
The fair, I don't have a problem transferring that from PILT, but I'm wondering at this time and juncture if it's a wise thing to do.
Well, I think that, kind of like all of us, they were kind of given,
Bad numbers?
they worked off of the information that they got, and the information that they got wasn't what they should have gotten, and so I kind of feel that, it wouldn't be like that if they would have gotten the right information.
So the ones down below on the closeout, that one is just something you guys just have to approve. There's really no.
And that money has already been transferred from PILT, so that's not even a decision?
No, but we have to transfer money, because that's not a place that we can fix it this year by cutting their budget or anything. There's no revenue source for it. So it's not a choice. We have to fix it and just not use it anymore and not let that happen again. For that mental
I thought you
health.
said Cindy had already paid it.
She did.
It's already gone.
It's already.
So we do need to cover it, is what you're saying?
Yes, Yeah, we have to do
The
that
check's been written,
a while ago.
yeah.
Yes.
It's
So,
just never been reconciled.
so we have to fix the ones on the bottom. And so, yeah, we just need to, just the ones on the top, the 3 on the top, the weed fair and extension is what you guys need to decide. And the fair is a lot.
It is.
So we could go into the new budget year with the weed being in the negative and have discussions with him on what he can do to shore that up, and then offer to maybe balance it out after that budget discussion with him.
We could.
Okay, and then I kind of agree with Lori on the fair. I think that probably those folks over there didn't really know. We know how it was not to get accurate reports from them.
Well, yeah.
I think if you do that with the fair, though, you might as well do that with
Do
the
it
weed,
with
because
all
it
of
wasn't
them,
their fault.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh.
it's kind of all
We
three of them.
they actually
Also, they
received-
weren't the ones that did the double billing. It was
No,
over here in our building.
that's correct.
Gotcha.
It was all on,
I thought it had something to do with that little delay in June where the new year starts in July and by the time they get the check or whatever, it's the next fiscal year. That didn't.
nope.
Okay, gotcha.
And then,
So it was completely the accounting, or someone's fault that happened.
we'll
It was
still
an
sit
error.
down with the fair and
Yeah.
talk about a budget. Because, I mean, my personal feeling, the fair's great, but we're looking at eliminating people's jobs and sending people home, and yet we're covering.
Yeah. No, let's
Covering
just
the fair.
Well, why don't
A
we just leave it
non-essential
like that?
service.
Why don't we just leave them all
Negative.
negative for the discussion? Because like Dwayne just pointed out, maybe that'll help drive the point home to people that we're not making up this story of a monetary financial problem here.
Okay.
And plus, it will show people why you are actually needed.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's
Well-
wondering, well, well, this is why. This
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah. There
everyone-
wasn't, did you notice nobody shrugged their shoulders or nobody said this or hunkered down? It was, I mean, was that, I kinda got that anyway.
laissez-faire.
Yeah,
Hey, roller coaster's still going, it's all that fun.
yeah. It kinda
Okay.
bothers me because it's,
So let's do that. So, okay, so on the negative cash, we'll leave it at negative, and we will just,
Work through it with them at the
yeah, we'll
preliminary
look through
budget.
it. We may take, we may get an audit finding for having
Oh.
negative cash, but I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay.
I personally, I think we should leave the negative cash.
It helps
and I think-
reinforces things.
And sometimes, we can correct that negative cash. We can give it a short-term loan from the road department or from PILT or whatever, right? And it's like a one-day loan. So on June 30th, they borrow the money, and on July 1, you pay it back. So it's just something just to get rid of negative cash. But I don't even want to do that because it's confusing to department head people. They'll look at it and they'll say, oh, I don't have negative cash. They'll run that report on June 30th. They won't see the fact that they have a liability to another fund. So I propose if we're going to leave it, I mean, we'll just leave it as negative cash and I won't fix it.
yeah, let's
So-
do that.
Okay. Very good.
So now we just need a motion on the closing out those 4 funds.
Yes.
What was the family planning? I
was
never
a-
remember hearing anything about
It was the health department. It's old.
Oh, okay.
Peggy said Peggy's good with closing that out, and Ronnie is good with the other 2. So-
And the canine, that was the fund that was set up for
The dog.
the dog originally?
And people that donated to it, if anywhere out there, probably would prefer it goes to public safety, the same general.
That's what we kind of
Right.
Yeah. All right. I make that motion. We approve the closeout of mental health, DUI court surcharge, canine, and family planning.
I'll second that.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Being none? Need the sheet for the amount, Madam Secretary?
Nope, I got it.
Where that money where it came from, why it was there, and all that. But in the last month or two, I've heard people talk about that Tom wants to bring on a canine show here. So how is that, would we reestablish another canine fund, or would that come out of his budget directly? What would be that sequence of events if we did swing back into canines again?
Well, how much are these canines going to cost? Because I don't know if it's gonna fit in his
I
budget.
believe
Yeah.
the other one was
It's
what,
not likely that we could do
$10,000?
either. We could set up in his current budget, we could reopen the canine account, it was only $200. If people wanna donate, it'd be back in business again. But currently, it hasn't been used for several years, so
It hasn't been used.
time
for
to
several-
close it out and then
Mhm.
cross that bridge when we come to it, I suppose, reopen it if need be.